Yeah. Hi everyone. I hope now I'm audible. So yes. So I hope my screen is also visible to you. All right. So yeah. All right. So let's get started with today's lecture. So I'll be starting with some intro to programming only. So in yesterday lectures, I hope you have learned some basics about what do you mean the programming, how and input out, what is input output, and how to print something on the output screen. So we'll be doing a question based on that. So that's the first question. So we'll be following a similar pattern like I discussed yesterday itself. I'll be solving each and every question of each and every module. And after I solve the question, explain the question. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. I'll explain it, whatever the doubt is. Okay, we'll be solving each and every question. So wait for it. Don't ask random questions like I want to so please can you solve loop one or something like that, because that becomes a mess. So we'll be solving each and every question, yeah, each and every question and cover each and every question each day. Okay. All right. Twinkle, that's what I specified right now. So we'll be going step by step, and that is the manner we'll go. All right. So first question, welcome to Java. In this challenge, you will learn how to print hello world in standard output. So what we see on the output screen is called a standard output. So we'll see what it goes as standard output. Complete the code by copying the two lines of the code below and pasting them inside the body of the main. So what this system.out print means is only you print this much of statement in the first line, and after that there will be a line break. So that's the end of the statement. So basically what you need to do is copy these two statements and paste it here and run code. That's pretty much it, and submit it. Now some of you might have doubt what this ln means. Okay, so the system.print is a standard syntax that you will have to learn, because every language has its own standard syntax. If you go to C, it's called printf. If you go to C++, it's called cout. If you go to Java, Python, it's directly print. Okay. Similar ways, every language has its own. So if you go to JavaScript, there's something called console. So in the similar case, Java has system.out.print. So if you are adding ln, is my voice breaking for everyone, or am I audible clearly? So I think Deepa, you need to check your internet once. Just drop back and join in once again if the issue is not sorted out. Just check your internet. Okay, yeah, that's clear. Now moving on. So what we see here is something called as standard printing practices. So if you just do system.out.print, so what you will be doing is printing that statement. But you do a ln, that means in layman language, what the ln means is after the end of whatever it is written inside the brackets, say Acciojob. So you basically just press an enter. So like in standard measure, if you want to, break the line, so what you do generally is do a line break, that is enter. So in similar fashion, for to enter a line break in computer language, what you do uses either ln or \n. Okay. So print ln is equivalent to adding \n at the end of the statement. So if I add a \n here and remove ln, then also the output will be same. There won't be any change. So to see the difference, what you can do is just add a \n twice and see there's an extra line break, because you have pressed this. Basically means you want the output screen to press enter at this point of time. Okay. All right. I hope this is clear now. So any more doubts in this question? All right. Pretty straightforward. Nothing much in this. Just difference between print, ln, and print. That's what you need to learn here. So let's move on to the next question. We can submit it once for our reference and see solution accepted. So yes. Okay. So let's move on to the next problem. That is called as 5 stars. So in this task, you have to print 5 stars vertically and 5 stars horizontally. There is no input product. You just need to print stars in the output format. Okay. So basically what you need to do is you need to print first 5 stars in, in one line, and then 5 more lines with each line having only 1 star. Okay. So test case is basically a hidden answer key where your code is tested against this. So that's what the test case means. Okay. So we'll do a similar pattern. Test case is basically used to test your code on the edge cases that you might not have checked, and to test whether your code is working for the end cases as well. That's what the test case means. So let's do a system.out.print ln 1 star space 2 star space 3 star space 4 star space 5 stars. 5 stars horizontal, then let's print 5 stars vertically. No, you should never view your test cases. That is basically a hidden thing. And if a test case is failing, that means your code is not entirely correct. So you need to go back and look at the edge cases for the code. Let's just copy paste these for 4 more times. Okay, let's run this. See, 5 stars horizontal and 5 stars vertical. Let's try and submit this. And it passed. That means this code is correct. Any doubts in this particular code now? Pretty straightforward, right? We just need to print 5 stars in the first line and then followed by 1 star in each of the lines. Space, because that's what we need to do here. There's a space in between stars. Okay, yeah. Many of you will say, why use so many print statements? What we can basically do is use backslash n. So we can do it in one line also. Add a line break here, backslash and then star. Okay. Now 1 star is added, again a backslash and next star. Again a backslash, again a next star, again a backslash n, and again a star. So how many stars have we did? See, for loop is not required because the number of stars in horizontal and vertical is fixed right now. So you don't need for loop. And you haven't been taught yet, so we won't be using it. Yeah, you can use single quotes and single star. So backslash n is basically a literal to add a line break. So basically in output screen, if you want to press enter after a certain number of characters, you need to add a backslash n. That's the standard way of doing a line break. So how many stars? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. So one more is required. So add one more and we are done. So let's run this code. And yeah, let's submit it again. In one line, it's done. Passed. Clear? Both the methods are clear now. In one line, I could do the same thing. No, you cannot use single quotes. Single quotes can only use when only one character is there. So if I use a single quote here, so you can see there will be an error. Like if there's only one character, then only you can use single quote. Say if I replace this by star, then I run the code, then it will be a correct. But not for all the cases. No, test case hasn't, test case has passed. Okay. I hope this is also clear now. Any doubts in this particular question? Everything is loud and clear. Any doubts? What's the error, Rashi? I don't see any error in my code. There might be something you're missing. See, about these two public, these first lines, many of you might have doubts like, what does this mean? Why am I not explain this? So what happens is, this is related to some Java language things that has the standard syntax. Like when you code in C, you include a library and do int main and those stuff. So that's basically a template code for you right now, because you won't be able to understand this, because there are certain concepts that you need to learn first, so that you're able to understand what the class means, what does static means, what does void means. So these things you learn over time. So that's why ignore these two lines, consider these two lines as default. So that's why. No, you cannot do that. You can initialize strings like that, but you cannot print it like that. See, I've shown you two methods now. Like there are plenty of ways now. You will say, I'll print only one star in each line, like system dot out or print a first 5 stars, then next SR. That's up to you. Okay. Two things you need to leave: the import packages that we take and these two lines. These two you can leave for now, considering like we'll be building our level in the main batch. When you come in the main batch, you learn about object-oriented programming, then you'll be able to understand these terms in a better and concise manner. So that way you'll be good. Okay. Any other doubts related to this problem now? Well, I think all these details will be answered on Discord only, no more in the class. See, you might think it's the same answer, but you will have to ensure that all the spaces and line breaks are provided in the proper manner. Because like when I do this and run this code, see, there's a difference now. And this difference will fail out. Okay. So are we done with the first module now? No more doubts here? Which code you want to see, Kunal? This is the 5 stars code. Oh, we have opened hello Java. Welcome to Java. Let's open 5 stars. This is the 5 stars code. What do you want me to explain again, Shivang? What's the doubt here? What is the doubt in this now? Like we just have to print 5 stars horizontally with a space in between, and after that in each line we have to print 1 stars. So just like we printed hello world and hello Java, what we need to do here is we need to print 5 stars in the first print statement, and after that in each print statement we can print 1 star. And to do it in a concise manner in one print statement, we use backslash n as a little. So backslash n basically means enter in a layman language. So if after certain number of characters, if you want to press enter, so what you do in a word is press enter key. So for that to happen in a coding language, you need to add backslash n. See, it's not like that. It's the healthier practice. There's no such statement where you need to start variables from lowercase. That it's not a numerator. You have read some wrong things right now. Don't trust everything you read. Internet is out there. There might be certain wrong things that you are reading. Okay. Individual codes I won't be able to look. I have specified it from day one. If you have some individual coding doubts, just join the live doc session and you'll be good to go. Test case hasn't failed for my code, guys. I have shown you twice. Test case is completely working for me. I'll show you last time. One, two, three, four, and five. Yeah. Let's submit this. Wasn't it? It's there on the Acciojob site. You can go there and do it. Okay, I hope it's pretty much clear now. So let's move on now to the next problem. Coming to a new concept now. Okay, so everyone is going to say, so why we are giving a user input when we can give the input directly in the code. There's a reason for it. If any random person, accesses your program, so if you say like my program is something secret, I would say like I don't want to make my program public. So what's the best way to give him the program so he can use it, but he is not exposed to the code? As in, you might have written some of your own logic, and you don't want the logic to go public. So what you basically do is you just ask him to feed the input here, run the program, and the program is going to give the output. You won't be seeing anything in the program. The program will take the input from the user and give the output that is desired. So that way what happens is your program remains a secret and it's reusable. Otherwise, what will happen is every time you want to give a different input, so what you will have to do is you will have to again back to the code, modify each and every place wherever it's needed, and then code it. So the better manner will be to take the input from the user, use it in the code, and give the output. So that way your code is reusable, your code remains secret. So if I say I have built some logic on my own and I don't want everyone to know like I have built something very phenomenal or something very optimized on that works very fast or something like that. So if I don't want to reveal the logic, what I'll do is I'll just tell any one of you to just, what do you want to test? You just give me the input, the output, you run the click on run code and the output will come. So that way it is good. Okay. So understood why we need input. I don't see any yeses or nos. Why do we need input? Everyone will have the question, sir, when we are providing the input inside the program, like say int n equals 5, int n equals 6. So why not modify them again and again? You all might have a question. So what if I build some good logic and I don't want the world to know? Like if I'm giving you a program, I don't want you to know the logic, but I want you to use it so that you can, get your desired outputs and feed it wherever you want. So what we basically do is we'll give the output file. You please provide us the input and we'll run the program and we'll give you the output directly. So that way our load is reduced. The user will not know the program and we do not have to modify the program each and every time. These are the three important points why we always take input from user. Okay. I'm not explaining the question right now. I'll explain the question later. The question is nothing. So to take input from user, there's a standard class that is used that is called scanner class. So whenever you use scanner class, ensure that these three libraries are always in your code without a doubt. If these three libraries are not there, there's a high possibility that you will face the error. Okay. So how to define a scanner? That's what it is defined here. So scanner is what you need to write. Like basically when you write int, double float, that similar way for scanner, you need to like capital SCANNER. Then you can give it as a variable name, anything. See, I give that as an input equals new scanner bracket system dot in. Okay. So this is a standard way of defining a scanner. Don't think about like why are we doing this. There are certain standard syntaxes that we use. Like in C, you will use scanf. In C++, you will use cin. Similar ways for Python, you will use input. So that's the way it is defined. So that is why in Java, you take user input in this manner. Now, let's read the question. User task. In this time, you must read 3 integers and then print them. Each integer must be printed on a new line. There are 3 lines of input and each line contains a single integer. Sample input, like the user will give you these 3 integers and you need to output them in a similar manner. Okay. So let's first take 3 integers as an input. Int a equals sc dot next int. Okay. So that's how you take the user input. Coming to int b equals sc dot next int. That is the second integer. Now int c equals sc dot next int. Now we need to print these 3 integers, but please note that you need to print in the same order as it is given. So you need to print the first integer first, second, and third. So if I print this as this, then it will be a wrong. Yeah, input dot next int, that's correct. Like you can say done. Print ln a, and you just copy paste the statements now, b and c. Let's provide the input. Please make sure this is a common error that people face. Like if I run the code without the input, this is the error that will pop up. That means you have not provided input or you have not provided sufficient inputs. That's the only case when this error occurs. See, if I provide the input in this manner, 4200 and 125, many of you will do this, but Java takes this as a one number and it will still throw an error. You need to provide this input the same way it's provided in the question. So if I provide this now this way, it will work perfectly fine. And let's try and submit this now. It passed. Okay. Now any doubts in this problem? Yeah, you can give it with spaces, no issues. Line number, it is basically a manner to define the scanner to take input from the user. Okay, so this is what you need to write always. The input can be named anything, that is up to you. There's no restriction why. Okay, why to take input only. I can take, all of them and just write, input X. Then also it will work fine. That's basically a variable that is being reused again and again. Okay. Meaning of next int is basically whatever the input is provided, the X scanner will start searching for the next int that is provided by the user. So if I provide, say a here, it will search for the next integer. It will throw an error. That means there's an input mismatch. So whatever the next input after the space is provided should be an integer if you are asking for an integer in the program. New scanner is basically a way of defining the object in Java. Please try to learn the syntax. You won't be able to understand much. When you understand object-oriented programming, then you'll be able to make more sense of what this line exactly means. Okay. Two times use int because each variable is a different variable. So if you are using a different variable, that means you will have to use int again. Please guys understand this, that this is a standard syntax of defining a scanner. So you need to define it in this manner only. You can change on, you can play in this line. Only thing you can play with is this particular variable. Rest entire line is never going to change. I have told it at the start itself, you need to leave these first 6, 7 lines. These won't make sense as of now. Consider them as a template. Make sure these 3 libraries are imported. If these are not imported, make sure that you are importing these libraries before writing any code. You need to give some name here. You cannot just leave it empty. You need to give some name. I define it X. You can define it by input. You can define it by SC. Whatever you like. It's up to you. All right, let's give input with spaces. That will also work fine. This scanner is predefined. You just need to import these libraries. These libraries have this scanner defined. You just need to use this line to get a scanner and then use it in your program. It is a scanner is a class we are creating here as an object. Don't ask these questions. These will go above your head as of now because you haven't studied object-oriented programming. Learn once and then you'll be able to answer all these questions by yourself itself. Okay, Devansh, I have specified at the start of the class, first 7 lines you need to consider by default. Don't ask me the meanings. There are certain things I cannot explain it to you. Even if I'll do, it won't make much sense to you because you have not studied the concepts that are needed to for you to understand these things. Class, static, all these are a part of object-oriented programming which you learn in the main batch. I'm not denying that you won't learn at all. You'll learn in the main batch, but first we need to get a basic of coding, then you will be able to understand it. I have given the input in one line only. Next int is basically the next int searches for the next input that is provided, and if it's an integer, it will take that integer as an input. That's a method of the scanner class that we are using to get the next integer from user. Okay, someone wants to print these in one line. So you need to use concatenation operator and add a backslash in everywhere. So that way it becomes a little messy. So I don't prefer this method. It's done. If you don't use plus and backslash in single, because backslash needs to be used in codes. If I put a in also quotes, then a will be taken as a character, not as a variable. So if you want to take something as a variable, you need to take it without quotes. Let's do this. 1, 2, 3. Run the code, see the output, submit the code, it will pass. Plus is basically a way of concatenating two different operators. If you are using an integer and a string, then you need to use plus in between. You cannot just write a backslash n and b and backslash n and c. That's not the correct way. This is called as concatenation operator that is used when two different variable types are used. Okay. Anything inside double quote is not a variable. It is going to be a string that is returned and it will be printed as it is, except these characters backslash n. Otherwise, if I write a will be printed as it is, no change. Any other doubts now? Input is here, 1 space 2 space 3. What do you want me to explain now? Plus is used when you want to concatenate two different types of operators. Okay, so if this is a string and this is an integer, since you guys have studied the data types now, so you'll know this is an integer variable and this is called a string. So if you want to print both of them in one line, you need to concatenate them with plus. Yeah, you can do the same. The spaces are not getting printed at all. There's no issues with the spaces. That's just to make the statement more clear. That won't run, Dushan. That I'm telling you, na, that's the obvious logic. There are syntactical issues everywhere. Each language you go, there are certain syntax that need to follow, and there's no explanation to that. The question is pretty straightforward. The user will give you three integer inputs, and you need to print each of the integers in a line at the output end. That's the question. There is no hypothetical shit in the question. 8 line I have said again and again. Scanner is a standard class that you will use to take the input. Don't ask me why scanner, what scanner. When you learn object-oriented programming in the main batch, you'll be able to make sense of it in a better manner. Because string and int cannot get added. Now that's the whole logic. If I remove this plus sign and do, then what will be printed is 3 comma 3 because a plus b will be printed as it is. See, that's the difference. Just print the statement before scanner. Because that's the way you print a string. How are we printing strings till now? How are we printing 5 stars? We're using double quotes for a reason, na? It's not double colons, double quotes. No, you cannot. Next int is the standard way of doing this. Because you're expecting an integer input, you'll say next int. Plus sign is to concatenate two different or type of data types. If you're using integer and string in the same print statement, then you need to use plus sign in between. Am I clear? There is no logic here. What's the logic of taking three integers and printing each of them in one line? That's it. What's the logic here? All right, I'm closing this question now. In this task, you need to print a right angle triangle of height 3 and lines 5. No input, you just need to print output using system.out to print ln. Okay, we are pretty much straightforward here. We don't need anything. Okay, so let's go with directly doing system.out.println. In first line, we need 1 star. Copy paste this line. Second, how many? 3 stars. And third, 5 stars. That's the code. Okay. See, no, nothing hypothetical. We just need to print as it is shown. Nothing else. Okay. Pretty much like star binding with that we have printed 5 horizontal and 5 vertical. And in this we have used it directly. There's no difference between backslash n and this. If I want to use backslash n, what we'll do is 1, 2, 3. Again, add a backslash n. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Done. It will yet again submit perfectly. Yeah, you can use single quotes. If you are using double quotes, it's nothing wrong. If you're using single quotes, then also it will pass. Okay. Now, any doubts in this problem? All right. Pretty straightforward. Nothing much in this. So, yep. Moving on to the Celsius and Fahrenheit problem now. It's not n near its backslash, and backslash n was used as an alternative to add a ln. That is line break. Okay. Next question. That is the last question. Celsius to Fahrenheit. Given a temperature C in Celsius, your task is to convert it into Fahrenheit using the following equation. So we will be given temp C to apply this equation and print the temperature in Fahrenheit. Okay. An integer represents the temperature in Celsius. Note that it is going to be always an integer. User task. What is the task? Convert the temperature to Fahrenheit and print it. So we need to convert it into Fahrenheit and print it. Okay. It is guaranteed that C will be a multiple of 5. So what does this statement means? So if it is a multiple of 5, that means it is going to be guaranteed divisible by 5. So there is no scope of pointed values. The temperature in Fahrenheit is never going to be like 98.3, 98.4. It is always going to be an integer because it's a multiple of 5. So this division will be making exact sense. What will be given as input? We will give an input in Celsius. We need to print in Fahrenheit. So let's start. Question is now clear. All right, so let's start writing stuff. Scanner space SC equals a new scanner space system dot int The question is pretty straightforward, guys. You will be given a temperature in Celsius by user. You need to convert it into Fahrenheit using the formula that is given. Just apply the equation and print the temperature in Fahrenheit. That's what the question is. The only note that was given is Celsius is always going to be a multiple of 5. So Fahrenheit will never be a in point mode. It's 8. Okay, and C equals SC dot next int. That's the temperature we are taking as an input. Now we define a int f. There are multiple ways to do it. We'll do it a very layman way. Let's do initialize it by C into 9. We have done the first operation. Now what we can do is f equals f divided by 5. Then f equals f plus 32. And just print the statement. Console. Let's run the program for 25. Line 7 and 8 we have discussed in the last question. I won't be explaining it again. Line number 10, f is equals to f divided by 5. So basically we are dividing the value of by f by 5 and assigning it back to f. Yeah, I've told you initially we can do it in single line as well. It's up to you. This is one of the methods. Okay, so if someone wants to do it in this manner, what he needs to do is add appropriate brackets so that the operations are formed in a better manner. Divide by 5 plus 32. Now, even if I comment these lines out, let's try the next input, that is minus 40. Let's see what the output comes. That is a variable name, guys. It's up to you. You can define it as SC, test, input, N, A, B, C, whatever you want to define. Yeah, there's no literal use of F. You can also directly, do add this into the print statement itself. This is also a way to do it, and you won't be needing any of the variable declarations. Also, let's submit this code via this method, and it passes all the test cases. All three methods I've explained. There is any way you can do, the output will be exactly same. So that case is already addressed, and that's why we are defined it as int. Otherwise, there were chances that Fahrenheit might be 98.2, 98.4, which cannot be there because it's a multiple of 5. So that has made up that problem very simple. All right. So that is pretty much it from my side. I don't see any other doubts now. So yeah, thank you so much, guys. I'll stop sharing my screen. You have around 5-10 minutes of break. You can just charge yourself up for another 2-hour class.
Hi everybody. If there are any doubts, I'm happy to help. So all of the people who have any doubts, any confusions in their mind regarding pre-course, regarding the main course, I am happy to answer. You can put it in chat box one by one and I'll be able to answer. Yes, 73K for guarantee. Yes, definitely. That is our core USP, you can say. We can guarantee you that yes, we can get you a job anywhere starting from 5 lakhs to then sky's the limit. Coding session will start. Bittu Kumar, I feel that you want to ask about the coding test. It will start from 22nd of July. Yes. See, MERN is a stack actually. It is a combination of all, as you've been taught earlier also. So this is a combination of backend, front end, and database. So you'll learn about it, all of the concepts. Don't worry. What will be our class timings of main class? The same as you are attending the pre-course. From 8 to 11 will be your class timings. Shivani, why do you want WhatsApp as a mode of communication? You can contact me on Discord. For the students who don't have the Discord link or were unable to join earlier, I'm putting it right away. Just give me 1 minute. I'm putting it. For the people who don't have the Discord link yet, I've posted it. I'll post it multiple times so that you can go to Discord. I am answering all the questions that you want. Please don't forget me to tag on Discord. Yeah, I have one more question. Yeah, Varnik, after clearing the assessment and interview and before joining the main course, see, Varnika, if you want to join the course in a pay after placement mode, you have to clear the coding test, then you have to clear the interview, then you can join. For that, I mean, in this, you don't have to pay us anything. You'll first study and then get placed and then pay us. Right? So this is the pay after placement model. If you want to pay the course fee upfront, you can pay us upfront also. This is another method of paying. So you can pay upfront and join. Main batch. Okay, so for June session, the June pre-course students who joined in the main batch in June, they are doing pretty well. They have covered one module. 20th, I guess it was started, and I guess on 20th July, their first module will be completed. So as you guys know, we have this modular structure now. So we have divided the entire course into 8 modules. Yes, there is 12 months no cost EMI available. Arin, don't worry. Datta Krishna. See, yes, the last day to sign the ISA is definitely 23rd. But what you can do is, if you want to join the main batch itself, you can sign it today itself and submit. But no worries, there is no nothing enforcing you. If you want, you can sign it on 22nd and submit. 23rd is the last. What is the enhanced salary if you get 5 lakhs? See, Sohail, if you get 5 lakhs as a CTC, so the salary that you can expect is somewhere around 40,000 to 42,000 rupees. This is pretty decent, I guess. For somebody who's starting in tech, it is pretty decent to get 42,000 rupees. Sir, I am from mechanical. Preetham, if you want to understand the concepts well, they're taught in the main class and the questions are taken up in the doubt class. So first of all, carefully listen to the recordings if you want to, or maybe the live class if you want to. If you attend the lecture, you will be it will be easy for you to grab the topics. Then you have to practice. There are enough questions on the portal. Yes, you can practice on the portal itself. All the questions, there are some practice questions also added. If you want, You can practice from Geek for Geeks if you want. Put school level filter and solve some questions if you want additional questions to be solved. Fluency, not an issue, not an issue. English fluency is not an issue. You'll be taught everything once you get into the main batch. But we cannot teach you English. We can give you methods on how to improve the English, and this will be it. I joined lately, yes, not a problem. ISA is, Edwin, an income sharing agreement where you share some part of your income with us as installments. So this is the course fee that we charge at the end of the course. Next batch is going to start on 29th of July. DSA level is advanced. I mean, every topic that is a part of, that should be essentially taught to you is a part of this Acciojob course, and it can land you up in a very good job anywhere between 5 to 40, 45, 50 also. Yeah, definitely. Minimum in hand salary. As I told you, 5 lakhs is the least we promise. So if you get a package of 5 lakhs, you can expect anywhere between 40 to 45,000 rupees in hand. No worries if you are a mechanical BTech 2019 pass out. No worries, you can join, you can attend. Yeah, definitely. If you are good enough, you can get referrals to, get into Microsoft or maybe Amazon, Google. See, I don't know why you guys want to get into big companies at a large. See, first of all, to learn something, you'll have to start off from the very scratch, right? And big companies are already running their business for years. And I feel the amount of knowledge you can get in a startup will be immense. It will be much, much greater than what you can get in an MNC. So you should ideally be targeting startups rather than targeting MNCs. MNCs are already established. Selection process. The selection process is very simple in pay-after placements. You'll have to attend the pre-course, solve the assignments. Once you complete 50% of the assignments, then you'll have to, the coding test will be starting from 20 seconds. So you'll have to give the coding test. Eventually, after clearing the coding test, you'll have to clear the interview to get into the main batch as pay-after placement mode. Okay. Last date to sign the ISA, the last pre-course was, I think 23rd is the last date. No, not difficult to understand programming. Most people get 5 to 6 lakhs. Yeah, this is not completely right. People get 5 to 6 lakhs, but not most of them get 5 to 6 lakhs. I'll tell you an average. So anywhere around, we have an average of 8.3 here at Acciojob. So 8.3, 8.5 you can expect. Financial assistant, yes, there is one financial assistance that we have for upfront guys. You can pay us the amount in EMIs. Yes, July next. After July, the batch would be starting. You can expect any batch anywhere between 20th to 30th of August, because the next batch would be starting then only. I feel Ritik is here. Just let me check once. Yeah, people, Ritik is coming in 2 minutes. Till then, please hold on.
I've joined. We can start. Hello, am I audible? Yes. Okay. Thank you. So okay, let's start in a minute. Give me just a second. Hello everyone. Good evening. I think we can start. Okay. So yesterday we saw introduction to programming. We got some idea of how we basically program a system, right? How we basically write code. Also, we saw first glimpse of the code at what we. Just a second. Rudram, can you confirm if my voice is clearly audible? Is it loud and clear? Hello, Rudram, you're on mute. Can others in chat confirm? Yeah, loud and clear, right? Voice is breaking, glitchy, not clear. Okay. Yes.
People, the class is starting in 2 minutes. मम्मी का फोन आ रहा है.
Yeah, hello everyone. Is it clear and better now? Yes, yes, no. Okay. Yes, no, no, no. Okay, this makes me more confusing whether I'm audible or not. Rudrash, can you confirm? Clear, loud and clear. Better, but not much. Better, clear. Am I audible and clear right now? Is it
Yes, 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 Ritik, you can hear me.
okay? So I'm not using mic, so you may get the background noises. So if there is any background noise or if there is any disturbance, so please do let me know in the chat. Yeah, there's disturbance. Better. I'll have to switch to the mic. Okay, ठीक है. I think this problem should have been resolved by now. Yeah, now clear.
Yes, it's clear now.
Thank you. ठीक है. Okay, guys, please don't confuse me. I'm I was using just the same setup 5 minutes before in this in some other call. So yeah, it was working, and I don't know how I switched and it stopped. Okay, I hope it should happen clear by now. Let's start. Okay, just a second. Okay, so yesterday we were starting with programming, right? So now we know the basic idea of programming, how basically code looks like, what basically a code is, right? So we got to know some idea. We saw some code, and we got to know what is basically a programming language, right? So let me quickly share my screen, and then we can continue from where we left off yesterday. Okay. Okay. So yeah, let's go to this code which we were using. I'll share the link of this code, okay, by like today's session. So we'll have something substantial. If you want to have a look of what we are drawing, what we are writing out in this whiteboard, you can have a look. Okay. Okay. So let me just take 5 minutes to quickly recap of what we did yesterday, and then we can start from today's part. Right. So in the first class, we saw why we need programming, why it is in demand, right? Why we need software to do piece of work, right? Why computer is good, and how we can tell something to the computer should do, and why our course is structured in this particular way that we have data structures and algorithm, and then we have front end, and then we have back end. Right? So we saw all these intro things in the very first class. In the second class, what we show is that how a language works, right? So basically we write the code in a high level language, and then this code gets converted into something known as a low level language, right? So low level language is nothing but 0 and 1, which is something we know that the computer understands. Computer understands zeros and ones. We write something in English, and then we use some piece of software, let's say like we can call this as translator. Depending on different languages, there is different kind of such softwares, right? And this software converts this from whatever code we write to zeros and ones, right? Now each language has its own way to implement their, like how they want to convert this high level language to low level language, right? And C++ uses a compiler, Python uses an interpreter, JavaScript uses an interpreter, right? Same way all the languages have their own version of this, right? Okay. Now, how Java uses? So Java is a special child. Java uses a combination of both of this. So Java firstly converts a language into something known as JVC by using a compiler, and then it uses an interpreter to convert this into the low-level language that we have. Right, the same thing, high level is getting converted into low level, but here we have a two-step process, something different from what we have in other languages. Right, that's why Java is one of the special, and it was one of the most advanced languages when it was developed. Right, and it is still so widely used till this. Right. Okay. So this is what we got the idea. Then we saw a language example, which is like Highland. Right. So this is one of the very recent common language, and this gives us basically, this is helpful in giving us an idea of what programming is. Right. Even if someone does not understand any line of code, he can understand of what is happening here. Right. So basically here we are trying to tell that, okay, hello, this is my program is starting, hi, and then we have a few variables, right? We are just taking some value, we are storing it, we are giving a name A to value 10, we are giving the name B to value TWO, we are giving a name C to the value 15, right? Then we are adding something to A, right? All these things we are doing. Right? So basically it gives us some idea of how a programming may work or how programming is basically, right? Okay. And then we saw of how we can write code in Java. So in Java, basically, so first thing that we understood that let's ignore these two lines of code for now. And then the first thing we saw was this particular function, right, which is system.out.print or system.out.print. So system.out.print is basically used to display anything in this black screen, which we call as UI. Voice is low, voice is not audible, voice is breaking. Is it happening for everyone? No, no. Okay, see, I'm using a mic. The reason is I don't want any background noise to disturb you. Okay, so for when I use a mic, the voice gets somewhat lowered. Right? If it is somewhat low for you, I'll advise to try to use a like headset or like mic or something. Sorry, earphones or something, and you'll not get any background noise. That's why I'm using this mic. If I remove the mic, the problem is we'll get a lot of background noise that I don't want because that is like some disturbance at your. It may cause some disturbance, right? And not focus on attention. So yeah, okay. Please try to check your internet connection and try to use a headset if you are feeling that the voice is somewhat okay. Okay, let's come back to this. So first function that we learned was the system.out.print. It basically prints anything that we give it to him and this black screen, which we call as console, right? What is this black screen called? The name of this black screen is console. I named it over here, right? Let me rewrite this today as well so that we remember the name of this black screen and we call this black screen as console. Okay. So now whatever I write here, that will get displayed as it is inside the console if it is written within this double quote. If it is something is written within this double quotes, it will be displayed as it is. If I write it using the function print, it will display it and not change the line. You can see here, I wrote it hello world and it is not changing the line and it is displaying the next string just after it. But if I write println, it will display it and then it will right away change the line. Right? So it will go to the next line and whatever I want to display in the next line, it will display. Right? So the next, whenever it encounters a print or println statement, it will display it in the next line. Okay? So yeah, so this is the very first function that we see, and we call this as function, right? Whatever the language provides us, we call this thing as function. Okay, let me write this down as well. So we call this thing as function. Okay, whatever the language provides it, that this is a function that we can use to perform anything, right? This is a function that I can use to display something in the console. Next thing that we learned, so basically we learned about variables. Now, what is a variable? So variable is basically, let me remove this. So what is a variable? So variable, you can assume variable is a box. Okay, variable is just like a box. If we want to store any value, we can pass it to the variable. If I want to store any value, I'll just give it to this variable and tell it that, you know what, you store this. So I can create a variable with the name A. So it is basically a box. You can assume that this is a box and whatever value I'll give it, it will store it. So if this A is an integer variable, it can store numbers, 10, 100, 1000, and so. If this A is, let's say, character variable, so it can store characters like this A, B, or C, right? Something like that. Single character, that of plus, minus, divide, all these are characters. Okay? So it can store a single character. And we also learned that even space is a character, right? Space is a character. So if I store something like a single space, so that is also a character in the language. Right? Okay, so space also has meaning. So space is nothing like it does not have a meaning. Space is also meaningful in the language, right? In the syntax of this language, space is also has some meaning. Okay. Now we learned about that. Okay, we can create variables. So what is the way to create a variable? We just need to specify what kind of variable this is. Whether it can store number, whether it can store character, whether it can store uh, float, whether it can store double, right? What is the this thing, right? So if it is an integer, it can store simple number, right? Like minus 10 plus 10 or something. And if it is a character, it can store a single character. If it is a float, it can store decimal numbers, but small decimal numbers. If it is a double, it can store large decimal numbers. If it is a long, it can store large integers, right? Large integers. For large integers, we call this data type as long. If we want to store a text, then we can use the data type as string. Okay, we can use strings. So this can store text, right? Text words or alpha length, right? And then there is a special kind of data type which is known as boolean. So it can store only two things, either true or false. There is no other data that it can store. It can just store two things, true and false. Okay. Okay. now we've understood that okay, these are data types, which are basically nothing but other different types of data that we see. We can see characters, we know numbers, we know strings, we know like float variables, like we know decimal numbers, all those things. We see characters in a day-to-day life. Only special thing is this boolean, which we do not see in a day-to-day life. But well, let me give you an example of which everyone will be able to understand. So, how many of you use To-Do app, right? You see notes or To-Do's app in your device, right? You can create a checklist. Let's say I want to create a checklist of whatever items I want to buy, right? If I bought that item, I'll click on the tick button and it will tick the item that I have brought this, right? So that I can maintain as boolean. That if I have ticked that button, that is true. If I have not ticked that button, that is false, right? So it can be used for something like checklist. Like checklist create for them, we can create checklist to, let's say, checklist of list of grocery I want to buy, right? Right. So this all the list item will I have two states. Either I have bought that grocery item or I have not. And so if I have bought that grocery item, so I can store it as true. If I have not bought, so that is false. Okay. और अगर ये नहीं समझ आप बोलें, so for now just leave it. Assume कि there is a special child of data type which is boolean. ठीक है. Okay. I guess this was covered. So if I'm being somewhat fast, I'm just being fast for this recap. Okay. For whatever new will start, I'll go very slow on that part. Okay. Okay. So now we know that we have function to display something in the console, like print or println, and then we have something like data type, which can be used to store different kind of value, right? And then we have variables, right? We know like variables. So we can name any kind of data, whatever name we want. But there has to be some rule, right? When our parents gave names to us, they followed some rules that there should not be a number in my name, right? Except for Elon Musk. Okay. All our parents followed the same convention that there should not be a number in my name, there should not be a dollar sign, or there should not be a hashtag in my name, right? So there were certain rules that our parents followed while they were giving names to us. Same way, we will be also following certain rules while giving names to these variables. Okay. The first thing is these variables names, whatever we keep, are case sensitive in this Java. So Java itself is a case sensitive language. Now, what does case sensitive mean? Like small a, if you give the name small a to a variable and name capital A to a variable, so these are two different variables. Okay. Whatever names you are giving, these are two different variables. So this will store two different values. So if I am printing small a, so it will print whatever value I stored in small a. That was -10. Yeah, so it is printing -10, right? Okay, I'm not written print. Okay, let me just remove these three lines of code. So since I have written -10, so it is printing -10. I've written some large number in this age, so it is printing that, right? So these two are completely different variables, right? So whenever I write any variable in different casing, small and different, so these becomes two different variables. If I write a somewhere else, so it means that I'm referring to the same variable. Okay. There is no special characters that is allowed in this variable name except underscore. Okay. You are also allowed to use $sign, but I'll advise not to use it, and that's why I'm not writing this in the rule either. Okay. Okay. So you should not use any special character in this variable name. So you are not allowed to use except this underscore sign. Okay. You can only use this underscore sign in your variable name, not anything else. You should always start your variable name with an alphabet. The variable name should always start with the alphabet. And the length of this variable name can be anything, whatever length you wish. Okay. And you are not allowed to use spaces in the variable name. For example, you try to create a variable name like case, comma C, like our names are, right? So we are not allowed to have spaces in this variable. You cannot create a variable name like this. Okay. Variable name has to be a continuous string. You can assume it is something like a single word, right? You cannot have spaces, you cannot have multi-word variable. Okay. And you cannot use reserve words, right? Now there were a lot of questions of what are these reserve words? What does reserve words mean? What are these reserve words exactly, right? Okay. So reserve words, basically every language has a set of words for which it has defined some meaning. Right? There is some meaning for this set of words. For example, in Java, when I write integer, right? In Java, when I write integer, it means something to this language. Right? If I write character, it means something to this language. If I write system dot out, right? If I write even system, it means something to this language. Right? If I write boolean, so it means something to this language. Right? So these words have special meaning in this language. So reserved words are not reserved words are all those words which have special meaning in the language, and we cannot use these words as the variable name. If I try to use, let's say, integer as the variable name, int, and I try to run this code, the language will tell me, you know what, you cannot use this word as the variable name. It is telling that this is not a statement, right? This is that I'll not allow you to declare a variable with the name int. Or if I try to declare it with a name, let's say boolean, right? So it will still throw me error that you know what, you cannot declare a variable with this particular name. Okay, I'm allowed to use BO, I'm allowed to use BOO, I'm allowed to use BOL as well, right? This I'm allowed, right? But I'm not allowed to use this specific one. Okay. So all those words which have special meaning in this language, I'll not allow to use this one. Now, what are these words and how will we know this? So there are exactly 48 such words, okay? 48 such words in Java, okay? uh, which we are not allowed to use. Few of them are we already know, like int, float, char, long, double. All these data types are such words. A system is of one such word, right, which we are not allowed to use. Similarly, gradually, when we try to learn the language further, we'll automatically understand what are the such words, right, that will not use, that we are not allowed to use. Okay. And then there is one more logic that let's say I initially told that the variable names are case sensitive, right? So okay, we can create two variables with small a and capital A, right? But am I allowed to create two variables with the same name? Let's say I want to create another a variable with the name which can store the character p, the alphabet p. If I try to run this, the language will throw me error. It will say me that, you know what, you have already declared the variable. Variable A is already defined in this, right? It is telling that variable A was already defined and I'm trying to redefine it. So it will not allow me. So we are not allowed to create the same variable in the same scope. We are not allowed to create the same variable inside the same function. Clear? So this was of what we learned yesterday. And in order to like display any of these variables in the UI, we simply can pass them to system.out.println. Only difference is earlier when we were writing system.out.println, we are writing everything inside double quotes. Right here you can observe everything was written inside double quote. So if you write anything inside double quote, that will be displayed as it is. And if you write anything outside this double quotes in the system.out.println, if you don't write this, so it will know that over this is a variable and you want to print this value. You are referring to the value that is stored in this variable. And that's how when I run this program, this code is printing the values of these variables. Okay. Let's say if I write a variable which I have not declared anywhere, right? If I try to display a variable which I have not declared, let's say h is a variable which I have not declared anywhere, and I try to run this program to display h, so it will throw me error that, you know what, you have not enclosed it within double quotes, and you are so I'll try to find it as variable and I do not find any variable with the name. Okay. So if I enclose it within double quote, it will display it as it is. But if I do not, it will try to search for if there is any variable with this name. If it is, it will display the value. If there is not, it will throw me error. Okay. So here, since h is enclosed within double quote, we are getting output. So this was the very first piece of logic that we saw yesterday. We can have data types, we can have variables, and we can display. Okay. Everyone clear on this part? Any doubts? Can we start for the next part? Clear, quick, yes, no, doubts? Okay. Yeah. So how to use boolean with condition? I'll arrive to that. Yeah. Okay, please explain long again. Okay, similar to how we have float and double, right? So float is storing small decimal numbers, right? It is only able to store small decimal number. If I try to store a large decimal number, you can see that it is losing the rest piece of data. It is only able to store till this much, and all of this data is lost. It is showing me that okay, there is 13 digits after this one, after which there is the decimal point, but I'm not able to store that. So I'll just store this. In the case of double, it is able to store a larger number. Same way, in the case of long, it is able to store a larger number, whereas an integer will be only able to store a smaller number. Okay? Integer can store a smaller number and long can store a larger number. What will happen if you write a single quote inside a print statement? Okay. So if you write a single quote or anything that directly means the value of this variable, okay? If anything that directly means the value of this variable, so that will get displayed. For example, instead of this h, if I let's say write a single quote a, so this is a directly value of a particular variable, right? So this is a character that will get displayed. Even if you write the value that you should have stored in a variable in here, so that will get displayed as it is. Okay. So if I write a number as well instead of this character, if I write a number like 100, so that will also get printed. If I use a value, that will get printed. So okay, why I am using f and l at the end of these long and float? Because by default the numbers are stored in integer. So if I want to store a long number, I have to manually tell the language that this is a long number. Okay, so don't confuse it with an integer. And by default the decimals are stored as double. So I have to manually tell this language that this is a float number. I want to store it as a float number. So don't confuse it with a double number. Okay, so that's why I'm specifying for these two numbers that this is a float number and this is a long number, because the language by default tries to store number as integers and decimal numbers as double. Okay. Okay. Now let's move to the next part and let's try to do something which will make sense or something which is interesting. Okay. We'll learn this small pieces, right? Yeah. Why did you give? I guess you got the answer. So in order to tell this that this is a float number, right? This is a small decimal number. This is a float number. I kept it at the end. By default, if I do not add it, so what will happen? This language will try to know this as a double number. Okay. This language will try to understand this as a double number. You can see this is showing me error, possibly lossy conversion of double to float. Right? It is telling me that I think that this is a double number and you are trying to store it in a float. So double can store large numbers, float can store small numbers, and you may lose some data. Right? So I'm telling it manually that you know what, I know that this is getting stored in a float number. You store it as float. You just don't show me these errors that you can't store all these things. Let's move to our next piece of logic. Okay? I guess this is clear. Now, whatever questions you're getting on this data type, I'll say the best way to is go to this site or any other compiler that you feel comfortable. Try to explore this. What will happen if you store a character in integer? What will happen if you store a number in float? Or what will happen if you store a number in string, right? What is the kind of error you will get, or what all things will break, or what all things will work. Let's move to something okay, more interesting, and let's try to write some code that will make some sense. Okay? So let's try to take some variable. Okay? Let's call it 10. Okay? And let's try to take another variable. Let's call it 20. Okay? Now let's say I want to find the sum of these two numbers. Okay? So how can I find? I can simply store the sum in some other variable, and I can perform this operation plus. If I want to add two values which are stored in variable, I can simply tell that I want to add A and I want to add B. What will happen? It will try to find out what is the values, what are the values stored in A, what are the values stored in B, right? And it will add both of them. Now, if I want to display it, I can simply display that system.out.println, and I can display the sum. So it will display the sum of these two numbers. So let me comment out this 3 lines of code as well. So similar way, if I want to perform any mathematical operation, I can simply change this sign. I want to tell it that, okay, I want to find the difference. So I can simply change it to minus. That will find the difference, right? So let's perform all the mathematical operation and get all the numbers. Okay. So what are different kind of mathematical operations that we can do in Java? We can do addition, we can do subtraction, we can do multiplication. Let's say I want to store A into B. We can do division as well. If I want to divide A and B, I can do division. And there is one more which is known as modulo. Okay. So this is known as modulo or remainder. So these are the 5 different kinds of mathematical operations. So we know plus, in subtraction, multiplication, division of what these things are doing. Right. So basically, when I'm adding, it is adding whatever values is present in A and B. If I'm subtracting, it is just subtracting whatever values is present in between A and B. Right. When I'm trying to multiply, it is trying to multiply 10 and 20. Right. Whatever values is in this A and B. When I'm dividing, it is trying to divide 10 by 20. Okay. And here there is some. Okay. When I divide in perform a division operation and I try to store something in Java, right? So what happens is, so actually if I ask you what is the division, what is the result, you'll tell me the result is 0.5, right? But since I'm storing it in an integer variable and I have written it as A divided by B, so it will just give me this 0. Okay. It will simply give me 0. Why? Because when I divide 10 by 20, the quotient that comes out is 0. So it will give me the quotient of this division. Okay. So whenever I perform any division, let's say like I divide 20 and 10, so the quotient is 0, there is nothing, and this is the remainder, right? And when I perform a percentage B, I get this particular remainder as result. Okay. So that's why we have 2 different operations. So this divides, and this is the modulo operator which gives the remainder. Okay. So if I want to just get the remainder of the division, I can simply write it as I can simply write it as A percentage B, and it will divide it and give me the remainder. So when this division happens, so it is 10 percentage 20, and the remainder is 10, right? Because when I divide 10 by 20, the remainder comes out to be 10. Let's try to print all of this. Now, how can I? Let's print it in different website, and we'll learn how to print it in same. Let's try to. Let's just change this variable name. So this is some difference. We have multiplication, we have division, and we have modulo. Let's run this. Simple. So basically, we have all the mathematical operations that we know. We can perform those mathematical operations in this language as well. Okay. For those of you who are facing issues based because of this language, I'm trying to communicate in English. Please try to bear with me somewhat, because now there are a lot of students in the class. I cannot try to communicate in Hindi because there will be a lot of students who will completely not able to understand any part of it. Right. So that's why try to bear with me. If you face any doubts, just put it in the chat. Okay, I'll try to explain them. I'll try to take those doubts and try to explain them in Hindi. Okay. But yeah, when we'll go for like main batch, when we go to live classes, we'll have ample amount of time, and then there will be lesser students, 40, 50 students, or ideally 30, 35. Then I can take your classes more in the English mixed forms, right? And we'll have ample amount of time to take the class in both English and Hindi. Yeah. So what is division and what is modulo, right? So what does division do? Division simply returns the quotient, right? So when we divide a number by another number, we have 2 parts. One is the quotient and one is the remainder. So when we do division in Java, it simply gives us the quotient. If I want to get the remainder, this particular operation will give me the remainder. Okay. So division operation always only gives the quotient, and remainder operation always gives the remainder. Okay. So so this, whenever this operation happens, so this does not happen uh, in the decimal terms, it happens in the integer terms, right? So it will not try to divide it up till decimal point, it will just try to get the integer form. Let's say, let me just change this value so we can get a better idea. Let me change it to 35 and let's change it to 7, or let's say change it to 6. Okay. So let's run this. So what will happen? So when I'm adding, so these two addition operation is happening as expected, subtraction is happening as expected, multiplication is happening as expected. Now the main question is division and multiple, right? So when the division happens, so 35 is divided by 6, so 30 is the quotient. So 30, and that is 5. Sorry, 5 is the quotient. 6 5 is the 30, so we get 5 over here, and then 5 is the remainder, so we get 5 as the remainder. If this was 34, so you would have got 5 as the quotient. So we'll get 5 from division and 4 is the remainder. So we'll get 4 from the remainder. Clear? Everyone understood mathematical operations, 5 arithmetic operation, plus, minus, into, divide and division. Clear? Okay. Now one more point is key. Firstly, when we perform this operation, so we are just trying to store this value inside this variable, right? So this is again new variables that we are trying to create to store the value. So whenever we'll feel the need to store any value or store something, we'll create the variable, and based on whatever data we are trying to store, we'll accordingly determine that this is the data type of this variable. Okay. Let's move to the next part. Let's now try to understand of how we can take input by the user, right? Now whatever input we are giving, let's say we are trying to build a calculator. Okay, so we don't want this value to always be like whatever we give, right? Whatever is written in the code. So value will be something which will be given by whoever is using the calculator. It will define that, okay, whenever user presses on the plus button, we'll do a sum of these two values, but we'll always ask the value from the user who is using the calculator, right? So we should know how we can take values from the user. So in order to take the values from the user, we'll use a library which is known as scanner. So what I'm trying to do, so basically Java has a way that it is telling me that, I am giving you a print function and println function. You can use this to display whatever you want in the UI. You can use this to display whatever you want again in the console. Basically, whatever you want to tell to the console, you can tell this. But if I want to get some value from whoever is running this code from them, if I want to ask the user, give me two values, and I'll perform all the mathematical operation, plus, minus, into, divide, and give you the result. Okay. So I want two values from the user. Now, in order to get these two values, I can use a library known as scanner. एक scanner नाम का function है that I can use to get these values. Right? For now, just know this as a line of code that I'm writing to use this scanner. Okay, to use this scanner function. To be scanner function है, using which I can ask the value to the user. For now, assume that I'm doing that piece of code. So I'm here basically telling that I'm going to use scanner. Okay, and I want this system.in. So earlier we used system.out. Basically, there I told that whatever I want to send this string to the console. Okay, whatever I'm writing inside this double quote, send that to the console and print it as it is. Here, what I'm telling it. Keep whatever is user will enter in the console, whatever user will type in the console, give me that data. I just want that data. Okay. Now, instead of writing these two values over here, I can tell it that I want to, I want to read it as next int. I want whatever integer users enters, I just want to read it. Let's run this. So now we see that we are not seeing any output. We do not see any plus, minus, into, divide operation happening because we did not write any value in A and B. Okay, what we are telling over here is we are telling the user, give me two values, I'll perform all the operation and then I'll give you the result. Right. So now if the user gives me two values like 24 and let's say 7. Okay. So then I will perform all the operation: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and remainder, and I give him the output. Right. So now this become more. This code becomes more user friendly. Right. Earlier we were having all the values in the code. हमने सारे values code पे लिख दिए थे. If user wants to give us any value, he was not able to. Now user can give us value. Right. This is how any software works. Right. You tell your Facebook whatever post you want to create. Right. You tell whatever reels you want to upload in your Instagram, right? Or you tell whatever data you want to submit whenever you submit any registration form, something, right? The same way, here I am asking the user, you give me two values and then I will perform this operation. Now, what is scanner? Scanner kya hai? Scanner is basically similar to how we were having system.out, right? System.out.println kya tha? This was the method using which we can write anything into the console. We used to print anything into the console. If I want to get something from the console, I can use this scanner for taking input from the user. Okay. So I am passing it that from where I want to take the input, I want to take the input from the console. That's why I'm writing system.in. Whatever user types in the console, just give me that particular input. Okay. In order to make it more better, let's try to display one statement: system.out.println. Before asking user that give me this input, I'll just tell him, please enter two numbers. And then I can run this. So what will happen now? So our code, always remember, if you have any doubts, always remember the code that you write always runs in a line by line order. Okay, whatever order you have written the code, that is the same order it runs. So first it ran this particular line of code where we created that scanner system dot, right. So basically it is telling that I have now a way using which I can receive input from the user. Okay. Now I am printing this line. Please enter two numbers. Okay, so this is getting printed. And now I'm waiting for the user to enter these two numbers, which will be stored in A and B variable. Okay. And these two, once this user enters these two numbers, it will be stored in A and B. And then I can perform the operations that I was performing in these two variables and display all the values. Okay. So now if the user enters, let's say 45, and then the next number is, let's say 34. I'll print that this is the, right? So this is the sum of both. This is the subtraction. This is the multiplication. When I divide 45 by 34, I get 1 as the quotient, and this is the remainder of this operation. Okay. Okay. So here SC is also just a variable. Okay. You can use any variable name as you like, right? If you want to use this variable as input, you can use it as input. Here, just changes, you have to write it as input. Okay. So this was a good catch. If someone noticed that this is also a name of a variable. Okay. You can give any name to this variable that you like. Okay. Assume scanner is a data type and this is a variable of this data type. Okay. And we can give this variable any name I want. Okay. And I'm telling this variable that, you know what, your responsibility is to take input from whatever user enters in the console. If user enters any number or any string or something, so you take that and give it to me. Okay. And I'll store it in any variable I like. Okay. So whatever user is entering here, I take it. So if I want to receive an integer, I'll use next int. Similarly, if I want to receive a double, so I'll use next double. Okay. If I want to receive a character, a string, I can use next line or simply next as well. So next can also work. Simply next also works. Okay. So next will give you whatever user entered next. If I want to be precise, I want to tell him that you know what, the next value that user is going to enter is integer. So I take it as integer. Okay. So it will take it as integer. Right. If I simply take it as next, it will give me as string. Okay. It assumes that by default user is entering anything as string. Okay. If I write it next line, it also takes it as a string. If I write next double, it takes it as float value. Okay, double value. So let me write out all this name of this next functions in a single line so that we can refer later. And let me write it over here itself. Okay. So we have next int. We saw this is used to take integer numbers. We have next float to take float input. We have next double to ask the user to enter a double number. Uh, we have next long to ask the user to enter a long integer. Right? Basically, this was a shorter number. This can be a larger number. Right? How float and double is. And then we can have next line, which is to take string. A string input can be taken as next line, and we have next boolean. The next boolean is for getting the next boolean number, right? So basically, true or false. Right? So boolean we can use to get the next true or false. I missed anyone? Did I miss anyone? Yeah, I missed the character, right? So there, I did not address the character. Okay, next line and next again. Okay, so these are the functions, right? So next int is clear. Next is basically to take an integer number. Next float is to take a float number. Next double is to take a double number. Next long is to take a long integer, right? Okay, next line is to take a string. So next line is for string. Let me write it as string so that it's easier to remember. Next boolean is to take a boolean number, right? From the name itself, it is clear. Okay. And then there is one more. You can use next to take integer as well. So instead of next line, you can use next as well. Okay. So instead of next line, let me also write this as well. So you can use next as well for string. Okay. This also works. So for string, you can either use next or next line, both works. Okay. There is only one thing remaining, that is character. So for character, we do not have something like next character. There is a trick to get this character. So let's say I want to get a character input. So let's say I want to get char c as input by the user. So I can say input dot next, okay, which will give me as it as a string, and then I can get whatever is this character at 0. Whatever is the first character that user gave me, I just want this. So this is a special way to take input for characters. For all the other data types, we have the function, like next int we have, next float we have, next double we have. For string we have next line, right? For boolean also we have, but for character, this is the statement that we need to write. What is happening over here? We are basically taking a string, okay, and I am telling it just give me the character at the very first character that the user gave, because I want to store only one character. If the user gave a lot of characters, I just want to get the first character. Okay. Can I take inputs without scanner? Yes, we can. There are some ways, but we'll prefer taking inputs from scanner. Okay. For timing itself, uh, at least for now, we'll take inputs from scanner. Okay. What if we want three character or something? What if you want a single character can store only one character, right? Each character can store only one single character. So we cannot have 2, 3 characters being stored in this C, right? C cannot store 2, 3 characters. There can only be one character that can be stored in C. Right? So if I run this, okay, let me just show you. Okay. So firstly, I'm taking it is giving me enter two numbers. Okay, so I gave him two numbers. Let's say 20 and 4. Okay. Next, it is again waiting. It is waiting for the string. So if I give it a lot of character, it will only take the very first character. Okay, so I can give it any character as string, but it will only take the first character. Which I have not printed this. Right? So let's print this as well. Print ln, and let's print this. Okay, so I'm printing this C at the end, so we know that okay, what is the input we are giving. Okay. So let's enter two numbers, 20 and 3. Let's say. Okay. And then it is waiting for this character. Let's say I gave it one character, so it will take it as it is and it will store it in this. Okay. But if I give it a lot of characters, so I inputted T and I gave the input 3, and it is giving me T as output. That you know what, I stored T in the variable C, right? Because I'm not giving the output C. Okay. If I give it a lot of characters instead of T, if I give it a lot of characters, let's say I gave him 3, 4 characters. Okay, let's give these two numbers. and instead of p, I gave him a lot of characters. That you know what, store all these characters. So what it will do is it will just take the first character and it will store it, and rest all it will say that I have no way to store. You just told me to store a single character, and you are giving me so many characters. I'll just store the first character. I'll not store the rest of the characters. Okay. Now, why caret 0? So basically 0, and by caret 0, I simply mean that take the very first character of the string that user is giving. Okay. Because next is supposed to take string, so user may give a string as well, right? So I'm just telling it to take the very first character. Okay. Just do not take any other character. Take the very first character. That's why caret 0. Yeah, and this is interesting. In programming, your very first thing starts with 0. Okay. So this was something we developed. One of the very first language we followed, that the list of numbers will always start with 0. If there are list of characters in a string, so I'll call the first character as the 0th character. The second character will call as the first character. So that's why we refer to as char of 0 to get the first character. Okay, what will happen if I write this? Okay, let's. I'm just trying to take input. Right, it will throw me error that it is. This will give me a string, and you are trying to store it in a character. You know what? This is not possible. In using next, I can get a string, but you cannot store this string into a character. If you want to store this, we have to create this as a string variable. Okay? So this will not allow me to run this operation if I do not write this. For all the taking all the data types, I have ways, but only for character, they did not define a specific function. Character के लिए कोई specific function नहीं है. We have to use this way कि the user can give the string. I can get the very first character and I can use it. Okay. So now if user gives any list of characters, I'll get the first character and yeah. What will happen if I write input char of 0? Okay, now take a guess of what will happen if I write it as char of 2 from this string. Which particular character will get stored in C? Everyone take a guess. Third character. What is that character? E, right? So what the idea, right? Basically, no, it will not take 3 characters. It will only take the third character because this character can store only one character, right? Character is only allowed to store a single character. It cannot store more than a single character. Okay. So, okay, let me just give it 2 numbers and then let me give it a string. Okay. So in this string, the third character is y, right? Third character is y. So it will store y. Okay. This is storing y, right? Whichever character from this string you want to store, you can store it. So if you want that this has to be only one character, you can just give it 0. Also, if the user enters a lot of characters, will not pick it, will only pick the first character. Ideally, user should enter only one character. Right? So this, for this reason, you do not see number alphabets in your calculator, right? You do not have alphabets in your calculator, but because if you provide alphabets in the calculator, there will be people who will start typing a plus b, right? And a plus b does not mean anything, right? So that's why there is no alphabets in the calculators. You only see numbers, right? In the calculator apps as well, they do not provide you that alphabet option that you can type alphabet to add them, right? They just provide you that numbers, add it. Because we are very interesting piece of species, we'll try to do things to so that it will not work, right? That it should not work, and we'll try to give input in such a way. Okay. So okay, let me recap of what we did. Okay, let me quickly recap. For those of you who understood, take this as a recap. For those of you who have doubts, try to listen for it. Okay. So basically, we understood of how we can display something in console, right? We can tell that, okay, this is print or this is println, display this variable's value, display this string, right? We know. But what if you want to ask the user, give me some input? I want to perform a mathematical operation. I want to add 2 numbers, right? So instead of writing those 2 numbers, ourselves will ask the user, give me 2 numbers, right? So in order to do that, firstly, I wrote one line of code at the start of this program. Import java.util.scan. Basically, I'm telling, give me this scanner wala function so that I can use this scanner function to take input from the user. Okay. Now, in here, I'm just creating a variable from this scanner function that I want to create an input variable which I'll use to get input from this console, which I am referring as system.out. This is one line that I'm writing. For now, you can mug up this line. Later, after writing it out again and again, you will get used to this particular line of code, and you will automatically be able to write this. Okay. Next, what I am doing is I'm having a list of functions in this input which I can use to get values. If I have integer function which I can use to get integer, float to get a float, double to get a double, long to get a long value, right? Next line to get a string value, boolean to get a boolean value. Next to again get a string value. For string we have two functions, but we do not have a function for character. Character के लिए कोई function ही नहीं. Okay. So how do we get character input? So we, okay, whatever the data types I wrote over here, sir, you told that we can get integer, long, float, double, string, boolean, even boolean we can get, but you cannot get a character, right? So whoever designed this library, he did not take into account that someone might need to input a character. Okay. So he did not design that function itself. I'll not design someone a character function. Okay. So what we are doing, we are using this next function, which is giving us a string and trying to get the whatever character user has in the very first character. Okay. We can get the very first character and we can store it in C. So this is how we can get a character input. Okay. Okay. Not able to get. Okay. So basically we have to, let me try it again one more time, last time. So firstly we try to print things into console using println. हमने println को use करा तो console में चीजें print कर. ठीक है, whatever we write inside this println, just print it in console. Next, what we want is we want to get input from user. Do you want a calculator which always gives the sum of 10 plus 20, or if you type minus, it gives you the a subtraction of minus 100 or 200? No, you don't want. You want that I'll give the number and you give me the sum, right? You want that thing with that calculator. You want that relation with the calculator, that you give two numbers, calculator will do the work and it will give you that result, right? So here also we want that work. If whenever we are writing code, we don't want to write those values inside here. I am performing the addition of only 10 and 20. I'll ask the user, give me two numbers, I'll perform that operation. Okay. For that, I wrote one line of code. This will allow me to take any input from user. I want to take integer, I want to take float, I want to take double, I want to take long, or I want to take full, or I want to take string. It will allow me to take any such value from user. Okay. Here I am trying to tell user, give me two numbers. Okay, just give me two numbers. And I'm telling him, just give me two first integer, I'll store it in A. Give me second integer, I'll store it in B. Okay. These are two functions that are present in this input. So I can write input dot next in to get the next integer. I can write input dot next in again to get the next. Right? So I'll get two numbers, whatever user needs. So I have functions for getting any such program, any such data. Right? I have the functions to get any such data. But only function that this scanner does not provide, and I'm very angry with this scanner that it did not do, was for character. Right? If it provided a function like next char, I would not have to spend so much time to explain of what we are doing over here, and you should not have to spend so much time to understand of what is happening over here. But this does not do, right? So this is not good for us. Okay, so it does not do that thing. So what we are trying to do is, so we are trying to tell him that, okay, you do not give a character function, we'll write something of our own. We are good in programming, we'll think of something. So what we'll do is, we'll take the string as it is. I'll tell the thing that give me string, give me the string. Okay. It will give me the string. Now I'll pick any character from the string. So in order to pick a character from the string, I can use char at. Okay. Now the first character is character at 0. Okay, char at 0. Okay, so in order to get the first character, write it as char at 0. If I want to get the second character, write char at 1. If I want to get the third character, write char at 2. Okay. So if I write char at 0, it will give me the first character. Whatever user inputs, it will give me the first character. If user inputs only one character, I'll get it as it is. Let's say I give these two numbers, and user gives me only one character. Let's say give me plus. So I'll get this plus as it is. Okay. If user gives me 3, 4, or 5 different characters, I'll pick up the first character. Okay. Let's say it gave me two numbers and then he gave me a lot of characters. Okay. So I'll pick up the first character out of. If you want to pick up the second character, third character, fourth character, you can change this. This will give you the second character. This will give you the third character. Accordingly, increase it and it will give you the so and so character. Whatever character you want to pick. What is meaning of at? Means character at, right? Whatever location. I want the character of zeroth location, which is the first character at first location. I want the second character. Right? Can we give input like caret? No, you cannot give inputs like this. Caret 0. It will not. It will show you. If I try to give it input like, give me all the characters at 0, 2, and 3, it will say me that, okay, you know what? This cannot be done. Okay, I can give you the character at only one location. Just tell me one such location. Okay, this is not allowed to run. So that is not possible. Okay, note that this is caret. Okay, A is only capital and T is small. Okay, in this name. So whatever thing I'm writing here, I'm writing I as capital. This is not something that I'm writing that I want to write it this way. This is something which has to be written in this way. Okay. So I here mentioned that the language is case sensitive. Okay. So if I'm writing something as small and something as capital, it has to be written in the same way. So S has to be written in capital. Okay, S has to be written capital here. Right? This has S has to be in capital. Okay. I know if you are seeing coding for the first time, it is somewhat difficult to remember what thing has to be written in capital and what thing has to be written in small. But trust me, I can guarantee that 100% if you write code for 10 or 15 days, you will get acquainted that, okay, this S is capital, this S is small. You'll make these mistakes and gradually you'll understand, okay, this S is capital, this I is small, and so right. This if this was this much difficult to remember, then all the programmers would only be covered by this capital and small. But this is very easy to remember. Okay? So as you keep on writing things, this automatically you get to remember. Okay? And this type of casing is known as camel case. Okay? Basically, you start the first, if you have two words, right? These are two different words, right? Next and integer. So we have two different words. So the first word's first alphabet is small, and for the second word's first alphabet is capital. If there is any third word, so the alphabet for the third word will be capital. Okay. Here we have two words, character and at. So the A for the second word is capital. Okay. So this is one convention that that is followed, and you can use this trick to remember if it is small or capital. You see caret. Okay, these are two different words. So A has to be capital. Okay. You see next in. So these are two different words. So I has to be capital. So this is the convention that was followed. Okay, and this convention is known as camel case. Okay, let me write that thing. Okay, so okay, this is running. Okay, sorry, that's why I was looking. Let me run this. So this convention is known as camel case. Let me write it as this. Right? So this is called as camel case. If you have two words, the first character is small and second character is can we take two input in the same line? Yes, you can. You can use separate them by spaces as well. So that also works. So space or enter, anything that you can use to separate them works. For example, let me run this code. So here I can take 56, 67, and then I can take it as so this will. The final input that you take, you have to press enter so that this will work. Okay, we can take all of them in a single line by providing space in the between, right? So space or enter, you can use any one of them to take the input. Okay. So when you type space, it simply means that you have taken this input and you want to go to the next input. Okay. But this does not work for strings. That in strings you want to take like a string as well, right? Complete string, which will be having spaces. For example, here let's say instead of taking this character, I want to take a string. So this string may contain spaces as well, right? So if I want to take it as next, so that's why you should prefer taking it in next lines. You can take it as this, and whatever rest you have that will be taken in here. Right. So if you have anything after this next, you have to take that in the next line. You can see now it is having this one, right? It is just getting this next. Okay, so let's use this next. Let's start this. That's why you can take. You should always take this as what happened. Did I press enter? try to take it as next. This. Let's try to take it as this. So it is taking this as, but it is breaking for next line. Interesting. Let's try to run this and take input in a single line. So now it is able to take this entire line. If you want to take the just the next string, you can pass it as next. If you want to take the entire line of whatever user gives using spaces, you have to use the next line. Okay. So that is the only thing that you have to keep in mind while taking it for strings. Okay. For those of you who did not get this experiment, just try to take this away from here. And try to take your inputs always in the next line. Try to use enter to take the input, not spaces. And when you are taking string input, try to use the next line, right? Because if your string contains spaces, next will only take the first string. Next will not take the next will only take this as input. It will not take these all whatever you have written. Okay. Okay, what is camel case? So basically, Java follows camel casing for its functions, right? So you'll generally see the functions are named in camel case. What is camel case? So if you have two words in the name, so first alphabet of the word will be small, and the second first alphabet of the second word will be capital. Right? So the same thing is followed over here. Next in, so N is small and I is capital. Right? Next line, N is small and L is capital. Right? So this is how you can remember the name of the function, which alphabet is small or which alphabet is capital. Right? This is a trick that you can use to remember the names of functions. Since it might seem like if you are seeing for the first time programming, which alphabet to keep small or which alphabet to keep make capital, right? So you can use this trick to remember which one to keep small or which one to keep as capital. Okay. First, identify what is for first or what is for second. So if I take everything in the single line, so it will say, okay, this is the first number, so this is for A, this is for the second number, this is for B, and whatever is remaining, since I'm taking everything as the next, whatever is the in the line, I'm taking everything in C, so it will take everything in C. Okay. If I take just the next, so it will give me just the next string. It will not give me all the strings. If anything is there separated in spaces. So this is the difference between next and next line, right? So you can use this next to get the string as well, but you can observe here. So this is only able to get the first word, right? If you have anything after spaces, so it will not be able to get that. Okay. So using next, you can get the string, but if there is no spaces, okay, let me just write that here as well. So string without spaces, and this can be used to get strings with spaces. Okay. Here between next and next line, why we have two different functions. If you have a single word and you want to take it in string, so you can take it, right? It will just give you the single word next. And if you have a lot, if you have an entire sentence which has spaces as well, so you can use next instead of next. Okay. So clear everyone? Quick yes or no? This functions and scanner taking input from user. Yeah. Char is a data type declaration. C is a variable. Caret input code from the single character from the string, right? Yes, it is right. So char is the data type. C is the name of the variable, and caret is taking a single character from whatever characters user input. Okay. Now we know to take anything, any type of data from the user. If user wants to enter a number, user wants to give us a float number, user wants to give us a long number, and this is somehow a calculator works, right? This can be one of the very first interesting programs that we are writing, right? What is double? Double is basically a float number, right? We declared a double number here, right? It's basically a float number. A large float number is basically a double. So if you want to take a string which does not contain spaces, you can use next. If you want to take a string which contains spaces, you can use next line. Right? So simply you can assume next can be used to take a word, and next line can be used to take a string. So we learned all the data types. There are two more data types that you might hear or might see, but you'll never use. I can for sure say that. Okay. Very like you'll not get any chance to use. There are two more data types as well, byte and short. Okay. So byte and shorts basically stores numbers. These also stores numbers. Right. So you can store byte, let's say b as 2 and short s is let's say 10, and we can display them. So if I want, we can display it as question about 10. And then this is b. This is s. Right. So these are byte stores very small numbers, and shorts have taken the same variable. So let's say by. Let's take it as by. Let's take it as by. So byte stores very small numbers, short stores somewhat larger than byte, and integer stores larger than the short. Okay. So byte is the smallest number that you can store, like very small numbers. Short can store somewhat larger, and integer stores larger than byte and short. Okay. So bytes, since these two store very small numbers, we do not use them very often because most of the times our numbers are somewhat larger. Right? Let's say you want to build a calculator, you do not want just to find the sum of 10 and 15, right? You want, or like 100, 200, you wanted to find the sum of large numbers as well, right? So so basically we do not use these two, but yeah, these are also the part of the language. Okay. So all these data types that we are writing over here, these are also known as primitive data type because this language is providing us. Okay. So these data types are also known as, we also learned about two more small data types, which is known as byte and short. Okay. Clear? And these are also known as primitive data type. Okay. So this is some theoretical thing. Primitive data type, we call this data types as, okay, you can remember this as data type itself. Later when we learn other data types, we'll explain what primitive data type and what non-primitive data type is. Why it is called primitive? Because language is providing this as it is. All the languages provide this. A byte, short, int, char, float, double, boolean, string. All the languages provide these kind of data types. So these are known as primitive data types, right? Because these are the basics, right? If we learn language, the first thing is we learn the alphabet. So these are the alphabets of our Java language. Okay? So that's why we call this as primitive data types. We also understood byte and short. Now, what is non-primitive? Okay. Okay. Can you think of anything else apart from this? We do not have a way to store list of numbers, right? So that may be a non-primitive. We do not have a way to store a list of strings, right? So that is non-primitive. We do not have a way to store a function, right? So that is non-primitive, right? String array, so array is non-primitive, right? So that anything that is not we've not written here, that is non-primitive. So we do not have tuple dictionary, hash map tuple. Right? So we have dictionary, we do not have tuple in Java. Okay. Okay. So let me do not understanding. So this is theory. So theory, I'll try to avoid. Right, theory will gradually learn. I don't want to bore you with theory. Let's try to focus on something which is interesting. That is code, which we are understanding. Okay. Okay. I'll try to go somewhat slow and little bit low, right? Okay. So first, leave the understood data type. We also see that we can perform operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and modulo. And then we saw of we can ask the user to give these numbers, right? Instead of we telling that this is our number and we'll perform the operation on this number, we ask the user that give us these numbers, we'll perform the operation and we'll tell you what the result was, right? So I'm asking this users to give me these numbers, right? And we understood what are the different ways of using which we can take inputs, right? Okay, let me just write this as well as comment over here. Sorry, next, and we can use caret 0 to input the character. Okay, the rest is clear. I'll try to paste this in your Discord channel or this entire thing that I've written over here, so that in case you want to refer this, what are the rules for naming variables or what are this small comments that I'm adding over here. So you get some piece of notes as well. Right? This may be random notes, but you will get this notes as well. Okay. Only line that you have to write, which I have not explained till now, is this import line. Okay. So for now, just remember this as it is, and these two lines. Okay, please do not ask questions on these lines because I don't want to confuse you. Right? To be very honest. Okay. So I'll explain this what this means because I'll use terms like package, library, functions, which none of us understand right. Okay. So that's why I'm not explaining. Only thing that we want to use scanner to write this code, this line of code at the top of your file. And then you can use scanner. Okay. Using scanner, we wrote one line here that I want to use scanner. This is the variable that I created, and I want to take input from the console. That's why I passed it system.in. And then we are taking inputs, input dot next line. If you want to name this variable instead of input something else like sc, you can name it. That will also work. Okay. We can give any name, and it should also follow the variable naming convention. Whatever names you give, right? Whatever names we give, it should always follow the variable naming convention in the language. No matter we are giving names to our variables or we are giving names to variables of some other thing, right? This is also we are giving name to the scanner data type variable, right? Where to use import.line, just add it at the top of your file, right? Just add it in the very first line of your file should be this import java.util.scanner. Okay. Okay, please write a code using double. Okay, let's say instead of taking these numbers, we want to take two doubles, right? Because we want to make our calculator more better. Let's say we want to take these numbers instead of A and B, we just want to take this as double. Okay. And instead of next int, we'll use next double. Okay, here I'll tell you one thing that you'll also, right? Okay, let me run this and then I'll tell you what. Sorry, here I'm taking this. Okay, so if I'm taking two double numbers, the result of all these operations will also be double, right? Because if there are two decimal numbers, I'm trying to sum them up, I'll get a decimal number as a result as well, right? So that's why all these things has to be double as well. Okay? So we took it as initially integers because the inputs were integer and outputs will also be integers. Now, since we want all this, all inputs are doubles, this output is also going to be double. So now let's enter two decimal numbers and let's enter 67. Let's enter something else, 6 point, let's say this, and let's enter a character. So now we are getting a double numbers as so adding these two, we are getting this. Adding, subtracting these two, we are getting this. And multiplying these two, we are getting this. On division, we are getting this. On and this is the remainder. Right? So all the results that is happening on these two operations is also getting in. Since we are having these two numbers as double numbers. Okay? So if I take these two as float numbers, the operation will happen as float numbers, and the result we get is also as float numbers. Okay. Sorry, I forgot to send the last class notes in Discord. This will not happen from now on. I'll send the notes right away, and you'll get it in your Discord section right away. Right? Okay, that was just random string that I had over here because I had the string input. That's why I gave that input. Now we do not need, I commented that line of code. Let me comment this line of code as well, or remove it. So there was a random string input that I had over here. So I had to input this in order to proceed. So let's say we want to get this added with this. So this is the operation. Similar way, we can experiment on float as well, right? Or like if we are experimenting on double, right? You want to take character, you want to display it, right? We can do that as well. Okay. Clear last time data types and mathematical operations, taking input. Clear these three parts. Any more doubts? Yes. So I see a good retention. Okay, Arun, your doubts. What is your doubt? Okay, what is your doubt, Madira? No. Yeah. Okay. So for those of you who understood, thumbs up for all of you. For those of you who did not get, let me try to re-explain. Okay. No issues. I have no issues in trying to re-explain because my entire point of taking this class is to help you understand. Okay. Just a second. चलो for this time I'm trying to explain in Hindi. मैं थोड़ा सा हिंदी में बता देता हूँ. So that those people who are not in not able to understand English, they can also understand. ठीक है. For those of you who do not understand in Hindi, please bear with me for a minute. ठीक है. चलो यहाँ पे हो क्या रहा है, पहले मैंने एक लाइन लिख दिया import java.util.scanner. ये क्या कर रहा है, ये बस एक स्कैनर वाला जो हम यूज करने वाले हैं वो बता दे रहा है कि हम इसको यूज कर रहे हैं. ठीक है. तो इसलिए हमने इसको स्टार्ट में लिख दिया. इसको कहाँ लिखना है, अपने फाइल की एग्जैक्ट स्टार्टिंग में ये लाइन को एज इट इज लिख दो. इस पे कोई चेंज नहीं करना है. इसको जो लाइन मैंने लिखा है इसको एज इट इज लिख दो. ठीक है. नाउ इसके बाद क्या करा हमने, नेक्स्ट थिंग इज कि हमने क्या करा, हमने एक वेरिएबल बनाया SC. ठीक है. SC में हमने एक सिस्टम डॉट इन बताया कि जो भी यूजर कंसोल में इनपुट करेगा हम SC के थ्रू से लेना चाहते हैं. ठीक है. SC. अब इसका नाम क्या SC होगा, नहीं, इसको जो नाम चाहो आप दे सकते हो. इनपुट आउटपुट ABCDZY जो भी नाम देना है यू कैन गिव दिस वेरिएबल. ठीक है. यू कैन गिव दिस वेरिएबल एनी नेम यू वांट. ठीक है. नेक्स्ट व्हाट वाज द नेक्स्ट थिंग. सो हमारे पास बहुत सारे फंक्शंस हैं. ठीक है. ये स्कैनर क्लास हमें देता है बहुत सारे फंक्शन जो हम यूज करके वैल्यू ले सकते हैं. ठीक है. वाई न्यू व्हाट इज दिस थिंग, इसको अभी के लिए समझ लो ऐसे ही लिखना है. इसको ये एक लाइन और ये एक लाइन, ये दो लाइन को अभी के लिए ऐसे एज इट इज मार्कअप करना. ठीक है. इसको ऐसे एज इट इज लिखना है और बाकी चीजें मैं एक्सप्लेन करता हूँ. ठीक है. और ये क्यों कर रहे हैं, जब हम आगे पढ़ेंगे थोड़े कॉन्सेप्ट लाइक क्लास पढ़ेंगे, फंक्शंस पढ़ेंगे, तब हमें समझ आ जाएगा. ठीक है. अभी समझ लो ये सिंटैक्स है. ठीक है. ऐसे ही लिखते हैं हमको. ठीक है. अब क्यों लिखते हैं वो हम समझ जाएंगे चीजें. अब इसके बाद हमने क्या करा है, हमने फंक्शंस बनाए. हमारे पास बहुत सारे फंक्शंस हैं जिसको हम यूज कर सकते हैं यूजर को बताने के लिए कि हमें क्या चाहिए. ठीक है. अगर हमें इंटीजर चाहिए तो हम बोलेंगे हमें नेक्स्ट इंट दे दो. अगर हमें फ्लोट चाहिए तो हम उसको बोलेंगे हमें एक नेक्स्ट फ्लोट दे दो. अगर हमें डबल चाहिए तो हम बोलेंगे एक नेक्स्ट डबल दे दो. अगर हमें लॉन्ग नंबर चाहिए तो हम उसे बोलेंगे लॉन्ग नंबर दे दो. अगर हमें एक लाइन चाहिए स्ट्रिंग जिसमें स्पेस हो, एक पूरा लाइन ऑफ स्ट्रिंग जिसमें स्पेस भी हो, तो हम उसे बोलेंगे एक नेक्स्ट लाइन दे दो. ठीक है. अगर हमें एक बुलेन चाहिए तो हम उससे बोलेंगे एक बुलेन दे दो, नेक्स्ट बुलेन. अगर हमें बस एक स्ट्रिंग चाहिए जिसमें स्पेस स्पेस नहीं है, बस एक वर्ड है वो हमें सिर्फ वही चाहिए, तो हम नेक्स्ट बोलेंगे, हमें एक नेक्स्ट दे दो. ठीक है. और कैरेक्टर के लिए इसने कोई फंक्शन ही नहीं बनाया. ठीक है. अगर ये फंक्शन बना देता तो मुझे इतनी चीजें एक्सप्लेन भी नहीं करनी पड़ती और आपको भी इजीली समझ आ जाता कि नेक्स्ट कैर लिख देंगे हो गया. बट कैरेक्टर के लिए फंक्शन नहीं. तो कैरेक्टर को इनपुट कैसे लिखते हैं, हम बोलते हैं कि हमें एक वर्ड दे दो, नेक्स्ट एक वर्ड दे दो. ठीक है. उस वर्ड का पहला कैरेक्टर हम ले लें. तो पहला कैरेक्टर 0 क्यों है, सो प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज में हमेशा पहला कैरेक्टर 0 होता है. वो 1 से स्टार्ट नहीं होता, नंबरिंग वो 0 से स्टार्ट होता है. 0 1 2 3 4 ऐसे करके नंबरिंग जाता है. ठीक है. तो प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज में हमेशा नंबरिंग 0 से स्टार्ट होता है. जितने भी प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज एग्जिस्ट करते हैं सारे प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज में 0 से स्टार्ट होता है. ठीक है. For those of you who want in English, I'll explain this in English as well. Just let me do it once in Hindi. Okay. ठीक है. सो फर्स्ट जो भी कैरेक्टर आएगा जीरो पे जो भी होगा हम बोल रहे हैं कि वो दे दो एंड दैट इज आवर कैरेक्टर, ठीक है, वही हमारा कैरेक्टर है। अब यहाँ पे क्या करा हमने, हमने इसको बोला है कि हमें दो डबल दे दो, ठीक है, हमें दो डबल नंबर दे दो, पहला डबल नंबर को हम ए में स्टोर कर लेंगे, दूसरा डबल नंबर को हम बी में स्टोर कर लेंगे। वो हमें दो डबल नंबर दे देगा, अब हमें ए और बी में स्टोर कर लिया। अब सेम जैसे हम मैथमेटिकल ऑपरेशन करते हैं, प्लस माइनस इंटू डिवाइड, हमने वो सारे कर दिए। तो प्लस माइनस इंटू डिवाइड तो समझ आ गया। ये परसेंटेज साइन क्या है, परसेंटेज का मतलब क्या, हम परसेंटेज निकाल रहे हैं, नहीं वो नहीं है इसका मतलब, इसको बोलते हैं मॉड्यूलो ऑपरेटर। ये करता क्या है, ए को डिवाइड करेगा बी से, ठीक है, मान लो ए की वैल्यू 10 है और बी की वैल्यू 20 है, सो 10 को 20 से डिवाइड करेगा और जो रिमाइंडर आएगा मुझे वो बता देगा कि ये रिमाइंडर आया भैया, ठीक है। अगर मैं डिवाइड करता मान लो 100 को 20 से, तो रिमाइंडर कुछ नहीं आता, तो ये मुझे बताता कि जीरो आ रहा है, ठीक है। अगर मैं डिवाइड करता मान लो 1007 को 20 से, तो 7 रिमाइंडर आता है, तो ये बोलता है भैया 7 रिमाइंडर आ रहा है, ठीक है। तो ये मुझे रिमाइंडर बताता है। तो ये 5 बेसिकल ऑपरेशन है हमारे पास जो हमें मिलते हैं प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज पे, जावा पे, ठीक है, 5 डिफरेंट काइंड्स ऑफ मैथमेटिकल ऑपरेशन। अब जो भी वैल्यू आ रही है हम बस उसे प्रिंट कर रहे हैं, ठीक है, सिंपल। अगर हमें स्ट्रिंग इनपुट लेना होता तो हम बस लिख देते, अगर वो सिंगल वर्ड होता तो हम नेक्स्ट लिखते, अगर एक लाइन होता तो हम नेक्स्ट लाइन लिखते, ठीक है, पूरा स्ट्रिंग विद स्पेसेस होता। अगर मान लो मुझे कैरेक्टर इनपुट लेना होता तो हम कैसे लेते, हम बस यहाँ पे लिखते कैर सी और यहाँ पे लिखते डॉट कैर एट जीरो। क्या हम कैरेट जीरो की जगह 1 2 3 4 लिख सकते हैं? हाँ हम जरूर लिख सकते हैं। वो हमें 1 2 3 4 जो भी कैरेक्टर हम इनपुट करेंगे वो हमें वो दे देगा, ठीक है, और वो सी में स्टोर हो जाएगा। अब सी को हम जहाँ पे यूज करेंगे वो वहाँ पे वो कैरेक्टर मीन करेगा, ठीक है। अब इतना ही है जो हमने आज पढ़ा कि हमारे पास एक स्कैनर नाम का फंक्शन है जिससे हम इनपुट मांगते हैं और हम जिस भी चाहे डेटा टाइप का इनपुट ले सकते हैं और हम उस पर्टिकुलर डेटा टाइप में स्टोर करते हैं। क्या मैं डबल में इंटीजर का इनपुट ले सकता हूँ? नहीं ले सकता। ये मुझे एरर दे देगा कि भाई तुमने डबल वेरिएबल बनाया और तुम मुझे बोल रहे हो कि इंटीजर इनपुट दे दो। ये बोलेगा कि नहीं ये अलाउड नहीं है, मैं तुम्हें एरर दे दूंगा कि तुम ये रन नहीं कर सकते। चलो यहाँ पे पॉसिबल हो जा रहा है डबल में, सॉरी मैंने डबल में इंटीजर मैं ले रहा हूँ तो ये पॉसिबल कर दे रहा है क्योंकि इंटीजर एक छोटा नंबर है, राइट। तो ये पॉसिबल हो जाएगा, मैं यहाँ पे एक इंटीजर नंबर डाल दूंगा तो ये स्टोर हो जाएगा डबल में, राइट। ठीक है, यहाँ पे मैंने ऐसे डाल दिया तो ये स्टोर हो जा रहा है, इसमें कोई दिक्कत नहीं आ रही, राइट। बट अगर मैं उल्टा करता ना कि अगर एक डबल लेता और यहाँ पे एक इंटीजर में स्टोर करने की कोशिश करता, क्योंकि इंटीजर छोटा वैल्यू स्टोर करता है, इंटीजर तो डेसिमल स्टोर कर नहीं सकता। डबल में तुम एक इंटीजर भी डाल दोगे तो वो भी स्टोर कर लेगा, बट यहाँ पे तो ये स्टोर नहीं कर पाएगा, ये तो एक डेसिमल नंबर है, इंटीजर तो बस नंबर स्टोर कर सकता है। तो वो बोलेगा कि भाई देखो मैं तो नहीं रख पाऊंगा इसको, तो मैं पहले ही बता दे रहा हूँ कि मैं नहीं रख सकता, एरर दिखा दे रहा है, ठीक है। तो अगर हम किसी बड़े वाले डेटा टाइप में मान लो डबल में फ्लोट को स्टोर करने की कोशिश करते हैं या फिर डबल में इंटीजर को स्टोर करने की कोशिश करते हैं तो ये सब चल जाता है, ठीक है। प्रोग्रामिंग हमें करना तो नहीं चाहिए बट वो चल जाता है क्योंकि डबल बोल रहा है कि भाई मैं तो स्टोर कर लूंगा, तो मैं क्यों तुम्हें बताऊं कि मैं स्टोर नहीं कर सकता, ठीक है। तो वो स्टोर कर लेता है तो इसलिए कुछ बोलता नहीं है, वो रख लेता है अपने पास वैल्यू। और अगर वो स्टोर नहीं कर पाता तो वो हमें बोलता है कि भाई देखो हम स्टोर नहीं कर पाएंगे इसको, ठीक है, अगर इंटीजर में हम डबल रखने की कोशिश करें, ठीक है। अब क्लियर है? last time Hindi mein clear? Yeah, I'll explain the same thing again in English, right? Okay, please don't come for all the languages. I know only two, ठीक है, English and Hindi, ठीक है। Okay, clear? Odia, okay. I see only few people from Odisha, ठीक है, so I can explain, ठीक है। कैमल केस बता देता हूँ। सो देखो अब जैसे हम यहाँ पे देख रहे हैं कि एस मैंने यहाँ पे कैपिटल लिख दिया, यहाँ पे मैंने डबल का डी कैपिटल लिख दिया, मैंने कहीं पे कैपिटल लिख दिया कहीं पे स्मॉल लिख दिया, ठीक है। तो क्या ये कोई लॉजिक फॉलो कर रहा है या फिर मैंने ऐसे ही लिख दिया कि कहीं कैपिटल लिख दे रहा हूँ कहीं स्मॉल? नहीं, जो मैंने कैपिटल लिखा और जो मैंने स्मॉल लिखा है वो एज इट इज लिखना है तुम्हें भी जब तुम कोड लिखना चाहते हो। अगर मान लो तुम सिस्टम डॉट आउट डॉट प्रिंटलन का एस को स्मॉल लिखते हो तो ये रन नहीं करेगा, ये बोलेगा कि भाई ये तो मुझे पता ही नहीं ये क्या है, क्योंकि हमारा जो लैंग्वेज है वो केस सेंसिटिव लैंग्वेज है। इसको कैपिटल एस और स्मॉल एस इसके लिए दो अलग चीजें हैं, ठीक है। जैसे हमने यहाँ पे वेरिएबल बनाया था कैपिटल ए और स्मॉल ए, तो दोनों डिफरेंट चीजें मीन करती थी, राइट। वैसे यहाँ पे इसके लिए दोनों डिफरेंट चीजें हैं, राइट। तो ये दोनों को डिफरेंटली ट्रीट करता है। तो इसको अब याद कैसे रखें कि हमको कहाँ कैपिटल लिखना है, कहाँ स्मॉल लिखना है, उसके लिए मैंने एक ट्रिक बताया कि बेसिकली ऐसे याद रख लो कि कैमल केस फॉलो करता है। अब कैमल केस क्या होता है कि कैमल केस में अगर दो वर्ड है, ठीक है, जैसे यहाँ पे लिखा मैंने, पहला वर्ड है कैमल और दूसरा वर्ड है केस, तो कैमल का सी स्मॉल होगा और केस का सी कैपिटल होगा। जो भी नेक्स्ट वर्ड आएगा इसके बाद, मान लो इसके बाद कैमल केस लेटर आएगा तो एल कैपिटल होगा, ठीक है। तो हर एक वर्ड का पहला कैरेक्टर कैपिटल होता है और सबसे पहला कैरेक्टर जो भी पूरे वर्ड के स्टार्टिंग में है वो स्मॉल होता है, ठीक है। अब यहाँ पे देखो सेम लॉजिक फॉलो है, नेक्स्ट डबल का एन कैपिटल है, डी स्मॉल है, डी कैपिटल है, ठीक है। अब हर जगह यही लॉजिक हमने फॉलो कर रखा है। यहाँ पे नेक्स्ट फ्लोट का एन स्मॉल है, एफ कैपिटल है, राइट। तो हर जगह यही लॉजिक फॉलो होता है पूरे लैंग्वेज। तो ये एक ट्रिक है याद रखने की। और कौन से ऐसे लाइक बाकी सारे स्मॉल से स्टार्ट होते हैं, बस सिस्टम एक ऐसा है जो कैपिटल से स्टार्ट होता है और स्ट्रिंग एक ऐसा है जो कैपिटल से स्टार्ट होता है, ठीक है। बाकी सारे स्मॉल से स्टार्ट होते हैं और स्कैनर एक कैपिटल से स्टार्ट, राइट। ये तीन चीजों को छोड़ लो, सिस्टम, स्कैनर और स्ट्रिंग, इसके अलावा बाकी सारे स्मॉल से ही स्टार्ट होते हैं। प्लीज राइट द कोड फॉर कैर, राइट। तो कैर के लिए सिंपल है, राइट। कैर के लिए इनपुट लेना है जो हमने बस उसको बताया, नेक्स्ट हमें नेक्स्ट चाहिए, जो भी नेक्स्ट वर्ड आ रहा है उसका पहला कैरेक्टर दे दो, ठीक है। अब इस कैरेक्टर को हम कैसे यूज करेंगे, जब कैरेक्टर के लेवल के हम कुछ देखेंगे चीजें, जैसे मैथमेटिकल ऑपरेशन तो हमें समझ आता है, प्लस माइनस इंटू डिवाइड तो हमने देख लिया। जब कैरेक्टर लेवल की चीजें देखेंगे तो हम इसको सी भी देख लेंगे, ठीक है। अभी के लिए बस हमें जानना था कि कैसे इनपुट ले सकते हैं कैरेक्टर, ओके। So let me now do the same thing in English. ठीक है, for those of you who are asking for English, okay. So what we have done till now, ठीक है। Okay, हिंदी वन everyone understood? किसी को अब हिंदी वाले में कोई भी डाउट है बताओ? Those of you who were asking for हिंदी, अभी डॉट 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 क्या ये, this is not a doubt है, ठीक है। अभी कोई डाउट नहीं है, क्लियर, राइट? सबको क्लियर है? अभी भी डाउट्स है? अच्छा अच्छा, डाउट्स पेस्ट कर दो, राइट योर डाउट्स, व्हाटएवर यू डिड नॉट अंडरस्टैंड, क्या समझ नहीं आया वो पूछो, आई कैन एक्सप्लेन दैट, ठीक है, वो मैं कवर कर दूँ, ठीक है। Okay, for those of you who understand both, so you understood in both, right? Now let me recap it in English. Okay. The first line of code that we wrote for taking the input is Java import java.util.scan. Okay. Assume this is a piece of line that you'll always need to write. Okay. So just write it for now at the top of your file that this is one line that I'm just telling that I'm going to use scanner. Java, you take this note that I'm going to use scanner and I'm just informing you beforehand. ठीक है, just don't tell me later that you are using scanner, I am not informed, ठीक है। Now here in this line I'm just telling this, I'm creating a variable which I'm named as C. You can name this variable whatever name you, ठीक है, input C S A Z B, whatever name you want you can name this. And then you have I'm just telling it that where will my input come from, my input will come from this console, so I refer to this console as system, ठीक है। So here when I wanted to say something to the console, I told system.out, ठीक है। When I want to take something from the console, I am telling it system.out, okay। Okay, next we have a set of functions that we can use to get this input. We have next int, next float, next double, next long, next line, next boolean and next, okay? So these are the functions that we have. Now all the functions by name we can understand that what kind of data they will give me. Next int will give me integer, next float will give me float, right? Next line gives me a string with spaces, right? If I have a long string which contains spaces, I can use next line. If I have a string that contains more spaces, I can use next if it is a single word string, okay? Only thing is that this language did not provide me was a function to take input character. Character के लिए this does not provide me any function, so I have to write my own logic to take input character. So what I'm writing is, you know what, give me a string without spaces, just give me a string and I'll take the very first character of it. If you give me only one character, I'll take it. If you give me 5 or 6 characters, I'll take the first character out of it, okay? So that is what I'm telling over here, and this is how we take character as input, okay? For rest all we have functions, for rest all data type we don't need to worry, we have the function and we can use them, okay? Okay, here what we are trying to do is we are trying to tell, okay, give me two numbers so that user does not get confused when he runs the program. It directly knows what he has to do, right? If you run this program, you will see this thing in the console, okay? You'll say please enter two numbers, so you'll know, okay, if the computer is asking me to give two numbers, let me give him two numbers, okay? And then you'll give me, okay, this is a addition, this is subtraction, this is multiplication, this is division, and this is the remainder. Okay, that is doing all these operations and giving me the result. Okay. Now, yeah. So if I want to perform all these operations are simple, right? Plus, minus, into, divide. Only thing that we do not know till now is modulo. So modulo is basically a new operation that gives us the remainder. So if I want to get the remainder of any operation, I can simply tell it that this give me the remainder after performing division. Just give me the remainder. If I divide 1007 by 20, it will give me 7 as remainder. Okay. Whatever values I am getting, I am just displaying it. Simple. So if I want to take a input as character, so instead of I do not have a function like next char, so I tell you this, give me the next word and I will figure out what is the character that I want to take. So I am telling it, take the very first character. I don't want to apply my brains. If I am asking a character and it's giving me 5, 6 characters, I'll take the first character. Okay. If I give him like, let's say this all characters, so it will take only the first character, this one. Okay. And that it will store in C. Okay. Now clear? Anyone any doubts? Now it should have been completely clear, right? Yeah. Caret means character at 0 position. Yes, caret means character at 0 position. If I want to take the character at first position, I can pass it caret 1. Okay. Okay. Clear to everyone? Okay, I have 200 people, 210 people specifically. So I want a yes from everyone if you understood, right? Or a no as well if you do not understand. So I can get what percentage of class is able to understand, right? I need to insert H in Roshan at 3. I need to insert H in Roshan at 3. I want to get print H from Roshan and do that using cat. So Roshan, so there is no H. Okay, if your input is Roshan, right? If let's say I am taking this input and user is giving me ROSHAN. So this is 0, 1, 2, and 3. You need to provide caret 3. So this will give you H. Okay? And this will store H in the character C. If your input is Roshan, it will store H in the character C. Yes. Yeah. So if you are able to understand, okay, one thing I'll tell, we are never able to understand everything in a live class, right? We never understand. Let's say when you first time saw went to school or learned something in your college class, you never understand everything in the class. You just get the idea of what things are, how things work, what a variable is, what a data type is, how to take input, how to write a addition or subtraction program, and then you try to play around with it, and then you understand it better, right? I can't write a code in online GTP. You can paste your codes here if you have any codes specific doubt. We can try to do that. Okay. And yeah, try to what is the use of import language? Which is basically we are trying to tell this language that I'm going to use scanner. So just don't tell me that you don't know this scanner. Because if I remove this line, you'll see that this will tell me that you know what, you did never informed me that you are going to use scanner. It is telling me I cannot find this symbol scanner. Right? So that's why I'm telling this language, you know what, just keep in mind that I'm going to use scanner in my code and do not tell me that I am not informed. Because for now, we can assume that this line of code is doing this piece of code. Yeah. Yeah. So this was clear, right? So we'll go slow. See, that's why we have this as 6 months. Even if you are very new, or even if you understand very much, right? So when we'll go to advanced topic, I'll even go more slower, right? So that you can even understand coding to the very advanced level, right? I don't want to in 6 months we did everything, and then you are not able to understand what front end is, what back end is, what are the different data structure elements, right? So yeah, our normal class will be somewhat more paced than this, but yeah, it will be of same. So let's try to, okay, let's keep it till this much on the terms of code, and let's try to go to this and try to understand something, right, on the theory front, or we can leave it as this much, right? So we are already at 1 hour 40 minutes, right? Okay, I'll share all the notes on Discord by today. Okay, where with the recording you'll get the notes and this whiteboard as well. So okay, I'll see if I can share this as PDF or I'll share the link directly. Okay, you'll get both of those things. Can to make a value in float, can we put 0 in any value of sum? Can we put dot 0? I did not get the question. So in the main batch will also go in Zoom as well. Okay. Okay, so we'll keep it this much till now. I think if anyone wants to drop off, you can drop off. For others, if you have doubts, I can take up. Okay. Tomorrow we'll start with conditionals and conditional programming. Okay. Like if else, if you know somewhat of conditional programming, but tomorrow we'll start with conditional programming. Okay. And try to play around with this. That is the best way to explore these things. Yeah, we'll go to gradually loops. So first we'll start with conditional programming, then we'll go to loops, arrays, and strings, all these things. Okay. So when you are in the main batch, I try to provide you, try to answer your individual questions as well, because now I see a lot of questions. In main batch, generally we try to keep it from 50, 60. You might be having something 60 to 70 or around 50, or at max it may go to 100, but it will be somewhere near. But I'll take all your questions. So don't worry on the size of the batch, no matter how size is. So you'll get all the notes, everything. Yeah, you can unmute yourself in the main batch. So when you'll have main batch, you'll be able to unmute yourself. If you have any specific doubt, I'll even give you the permission to share your screen and you can solve those doubts as well. We support, yeah. So that will happen in the main batch. But here, since there are a lot of students, I have like we have muted everyone. Out of 100, so I have taught 400 students till now, and all of them have got placed, and a lot of them have had multiple offers as well. I'm connected with a lot of them, and they're pretty much happy with this. So they learned a lot of things. So the placement percentage is almost 100%. So whichever classes I have taken, I know all of them are placed, and a lot of them have multiple offers. Okay, so it is not 10 to 15. If you follow this course for 6 months, I can guarantee that you will be very good at the coding and this one. Was it hard in beginning? So what I generally see now, see when a lot of students come, a lot of them do not have any exposure to coding. So everything is new to everyone. Okay? So first 10, 15 days it takes to cool down your nerves to learn. And now you can see I'm going very slow, right? Explaining 2, 3 things in a class. And gradually as you progress, you yourself will see that you have learned so many things. Right? So I started a batch in April, and a lot of students in that batch were seeing coding for the first time. Few of them were from commerce and arts stream, and now they send me questions of, sir, how I can solve this advanced problems, how I can solve this advanced problems. So they have become very good in that. Okay, so and like I have seen students improve no matter from whichever background you are. You will definitely improve. Yeah, BCom, arts, any stream students, like whoever has done this course to like followed this course, practiced, they have got. The main classes will also be in June, so please get acquainted to this June classes. If you have any suggestion improvements, you can tell that. Okay, we can incorporate that. Okay, but I feel June is better. I can see your chats. I can share the screen, right? And this is smooth. Yeah, you can leave if you want to. I'll not take any theory. If you have any specific doubts, I can take that up. Okay, if you are getting this question that on class you are able to understand, but when you type your code, you'll get errors, right? So this is a common thing. Okay? Just watch the class recording, just try to play it, and just try to see what is the small mistake that maybe you have used a small s instead of a capital S, that is throwing error, and you are not able to understand that it is coming due to this. That maybe you forgot to write this import line while using scanner, right? So just try to see these small things, and you'll see that your code is. Okay, there might be these small things that you might be missing. Success rate out of 100, I'll say 100. Okay, so I don't know any student who did not get placed. So whatever batches I have taken, all of them got placed. Okay. Meet is better, but Meet is not this as good as this. It does not allow me to draw something on the screen right away. Right, screen sharing is also slow. Right, so it does not. And if there are a lot of students, it hangs and crashes a lot. What is the concept? What is that concept video? I'm not seeing concept video anything. So whatever I'm teaching right now, you'll get the same kind of questions for your initial screening. Okay, just try to follow this, and I'm going to guarantee you'll not get any questions out of this. Okay? So you'll get questions based on then write a calculator program. Right, you take two inputs from the user and write a program to display the sum, division, multiplication, all those things. At very small logic. Okay. Okay, other than Java, how to take input in Pylang? In Pylang, we take the input as, I guess there is one way. I'm not used to very much of this language. Uh, we can see this more definition of this language, how we can take this and run this. I've not seen that in this language in that much detail, to be very honest. But I found it very interesting, right? How someone can write code which anyone can understand, right? This lines of code are understandable to everyone. Right? But in assembly language, I explained, right? This was one of the very first languages that came up, and like which had very small features like addition, subtraction, and then we moved to high level language, which had more features. I have explained this assembly level language or a concept in the first class and the second class as well. Right? So you can watch any one of that, and you can get recap. So you'll get the recording. If for those of you who have doubts, like anything on the concept, please try to watch the recording. Because we covered very small amount of concept today, and I covered it both English and right. So watch whichever part you are comfortable with. Okay. So your all the recordings will be provided to you in the Discord. When you join the main batch, if you are worried about interviews, don't worry. You will get all the trainings like soft skills, your technical rounds questions, like will inform how to explain answers, how to what are the kind of questions that you may get. All these things will get there. Okay. So everyone, okay, let's keep it till this much. I'll leave you 10 minutes early today. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining. And whatever doubts you have, what is the most important skill for joining Microsoft? Programming and understanding of software engineering concepts. Okay. Fahrenheit to Celsius question, we'll do this tomorrow. Okay. We'll start with this. We'll do this Fahrenheit to Celsius. Okay. So thank you everyone. Bye bye. Good night. See you tomorrow. Okay.